Chapter 2049, Wanton Destruction. 1. Seeing that the bunch of idiots in the God Lord's residence only looked at him blankly after hearing his words, Tsang was not happy. These idiots, no wonder they could only be the subordinates of that old woman, Wu Cheng, they were really too inexperienced. It had said it several times, but no one had gone to report to Wu Chen. What made it even angrier was that Wu Chen, that old woman, didn't come out by herself. This fact made Tsang, who already had a bad temper, so angry that he was about to go crazy. The consequences of making it angry would be very serious. Although Leng Ruoxue and the rest were observing everything through the light screen, they could already faintly see the snow-white Tsang without a single strand of stray hair. His body was already emitting a thick black mist. It was obvious that Tsang was quite angry. Seeing this, Leng Ruoxue and the others could not help but pray for the people in the Divine Master's residence. Of course, most of them were gloating. Leng Ruoxue wanted to admire Xia Tsang's destructive ability. Ever since Green appeared and repeated his words many times, but other than being stunned, he did not have any other reaction. Green Vessel had been mumbling non-stop beside her ear, "We're finished. It's finished." The God Lord's manor was in trouble. These people are going to be in big trouble. His tone was also gloating. In the next second, a powerful air current erupted from Azure's body. The small Azure suddenly grew in size. In the blink of an eye, Azure's body had become a huge mountain. The people from the god's manor who had to look down at it instantly turned into tiny ants. They had to look up at Azure. The pressure from Tsang's body made it hard for many people to breathe. Many people's faces had clearly turned much paler, and the weaker ones were like leaves in the autumn wind, teetering on the verge of collapse. Seeing this, the three hierarch experts of the God Lord's estate sobered up and calmed down. They looked at the enormous snow-white Totoro with heavy hearts. As far as they knew, the Totoro clan had always been weak and existed more as the pets of some families' daughters. Their attack power was also very weak. However, the one in front of them was beyond their expectations. Even as reverent god level, they had to spend some effort to resist the pressure from this one, not to mention others. A strong enemy. This was definitely a strong enemy. Moreover, this powerful enemy was here to find the Divine Master. He wondered how the Divine Master had provoked this person. The three of them could not understand. In fact, it was normal that they didn't understand because the one in front of them wasn't a real Totoro, but an image that Tsang had created. Apart from having a bad temper, Azure also liked to turn itself into a harmless and cute little animal to deceive the world and lure those who didn't have eyes to provoke it. Those people naturally didn't end up well, but Azure was very happy because it was too bored. This was also a bad taste it never got tired of. Unfortunately, not many people knew the inside story. Most of the people were deceived by Tsang's harmless appearance. However, it was too late when they found out the truth. However, many people chose to remain silent after being deceived. They did not expose this matter. On one hand, they were afraid of embarrassing themselves. On the other hand, it was human nature. When they were unlucky, they naturally did not want others to have a good time. It was precisely because he hoped that someone else would suffer the same fate as him that he had been successful in every endeavor for tens of millions of years. To this day, no one knew that there was a pseudo-Totoro in the Divine Realm that had been deceiving the blind people of the Divine Realm with its weak appearance. At the same time, no one would associate the Totoro with Azure. After all, not many people had seen Azure's appearance. Therefore, when the people of the God Lord's estate saw the powerful Totoro, they were unable to react for a long time. Azure had only displayed a little of his strength and many people in the God Lord's estate could not bear the pressure. Seeing this, Tsang slightly restrained his own pressure, then cleared his throat and said loudly, "Where's Fog? Hurry up and get her out here, don't make me wait too long." When Tsang shouted, he deliberately infused his divine power into his voice, making it several times louder. Instantly, many people couldn't take it and subconsciously covered their ears, their faces showing pained expressions. Seeing such a weak so-called strong person, Azure's clear black eyes revealed a disdainful expression. Then, as if looking down at ants, it glanced at the people below and said indifferently, "No one is willing to help me inform them? This lord's patience is limited. Senior, the God Lord is currently in seclusion. May I know what's the matter? When the Divine Master comes out of seclusion, well, definitely inform him of Senior's intentions as soon as possible." At this moment, Xian Yi, who was obviously much calmer, spoke with an extremely humble attitude. He already knew that the Totoro's identity was not simple, so he naturally did not dare to be negligent. In seclusion. Even if you're in closed-door cultivation, you have to come out. Hearing Xian Yi's words, Tsang still roared in a domineering manner. Of course, it knew that the old woman was in seclusion. However, it had nothing to do with it. Anyway, it must get the old woman out. Otherwise, where would its dignity be? Moreover, it had just injected its divine power into its voice, so even if there was a restriction placed in the place where Wuhan was in seclusion, it could still hear its voice. It was just that the old woman refused to come out, so it seemed that she was injured, hee. Could it be that he was agitated by its voice? If that was the case, it definitely wouldn't feel guilty. It hated that woman. Thinking of this, Tsang's attitude became even more anxious. Fog ice. Fog ice. You ugly freak, get the hell out here. Don't let this lord stay too long, or you'll regret it. Tsang roared without restraint. His words made the people of the God Lord's estate, who had been in a daze, even more dazed. Ugly? Hearing this, Leng Ruoxue and the others were speechless. Uncle Long and Ao Jie's mouth twitched. Although they didn't like Wu Ling, they had to admit that she was a rare beauty. However, this beauty had become an ugly monster in Tsang's mouth. They really didn't know what kind of beauty was considered a beauty in Tsang's eyes. Moreover, there probably weren't many women who could stand being called ugly, right? Although they thought this way, Fog still did not come out to see the blue. Moreover, it wasn't that she didn't want to come out, but she couldn't. Wu Xiao was already poisoned, and the poison had not been completely cleared. Moreover, Tsang's roar just now had made her injuries worse. So, at this moment, she was suffering from pain. It was as if there were insects constantly drilling into her body, and her heart was in so much pain that it was unbearable. Chapter 2050, Wanton Destruction, 2. At this moment, her face was extremely pale, and Tsang's provocative voice continued to reach her ears from the restrictions she had set up. This fact made Wu Xiao extremely angry. Sitting on the futon in her exclusive secret room, Wu Xian was trying to control her blood that was going crazy. Damn madman, can't you just stop? Although she didn't see the person, she knew who this familiar voice was without even going out. More importantly, there weren't many people in the entire divine world who dared to speak to her in such a manner. Tsang was definitely one of them, and he was the strongest among this small group of people. Even she was afraid of him. Thus, although she was furious, she didn't go out to see Tsang immediately. Instead, she tried her best to calm her raging blood. Who knew that at this moment, another loud roar was transmitted into Wu Yan's ears. Immediately, her heart trembled violently. With a pft, a mouthful of bright red blood spurted out of her mouth and splattered on the snow-white ground not far from her. It was like a red plum blooming on the snow, bright red and dazzling. Wu Yan endured the pain in her body and wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. She knew that this time, her injuries had been added to her injuries, and this was all because of that lunatic Tsang. However, she would not go crazy like that lunatic. At this moment, she knew that the most important thing for her was to heal. After stuffing a few healing pills into her mouth, she continued to concentrate on absorbing the spiritual energy in the secret room. Unfortunately, Tsang wouldn't let her do as she wished. Roars that were louder than the previous one reverberated in Wu Xiao's ears. Even though she had already shut off her 6 senses, Tsang's demonic voice still rang in her ears, "Fog ice. Ugly monster. Hurry up and get out here." Forcefully suppressing the anger in her heart, Wu Yan had an impulse to go out and meet that madman for a moment. However, her rationality still made her calm down. Therefore, after thinking for a while, she immediately sat as steady as Mount Tai. Sung, who had been causing a ruckus in the God Lord's manor, saw that fog ripple refused to come out. The anger in its heart shot up to its head. Its body, which was originally covered in black fog, now showed an angry fiery red. This time, it was really angry and its patience was exhausted. Fog ice. Ugly monster. I'll give you one last chance. If you don't come out in 5 minutes, don't blame me for being impolite. Sung was so angry that he stomped his feet, his roars getting louder and louder. Many people in the Divine Lord's estate couldn't withstand Sung's pressure and fainted. Xian Yi and the other 2 hierarch experts' faces also turned pale. They were not feeling well either. Sung's strength was so powerful that it made their hearts tremble. They had never dreamed that there would be such a powerful expert in the divine world. Their reverent god rank seemed so fragile in front of this Totoro that they couldn't even withstand a single blow. This fact was a huge blow to Huang Wei and Xia Yi. In comparison, Xian Yi was still in a better state. After all, he had already found out the identity of this Totoro through Uncle Long. AI. That person. Wu Chen also didn't dare to provoke him. Xian Yi knew very well that the Totoro in front of him was undoubtedly the one who the fog in the entire divine world feared the most. However, although the Totoro was powerful, it did not care about the matters of the divine world, big or small, nor did it care who was the divine master. Otherwise, the divine world would not have been in turmoil in the past. However, now that the Totoro had set its eyes on that little girl, the divine world was probably going to change. Just as Xian Yi was thinking, he heard the voice of the falling time meter. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's time. After saying that, Azure's figure immediately expanded. In an instant, Sung's huge body took up more than half of the God Lord's estate. Compared to its huge body, everyone in the God Lord's estate was even smaller. Just as everyone's eyes were wide open, looking at Sung in shock, suddenly, several sharp energy waves exploded from Sung's body, followed by a bang. Then, everyone watched helplessly as the sturdy, tall, and magnificent golden building of the Divine Master's estate collapsed like it was made of paper. Horrifying. It was absolutely horrifying. What kind of strength was this? It was able to collapse the God Lord's estate, which had an extremely strong defensive formation. When did such a bull beast appear in the immortal realm? At this time, although countless thoughts floated through everyone's mind, their minds were even more at a loss. As soon as the main building of the god's manor collapsed, the other subsidiary buildings also had a chain reaction, like dominoes. They were all broken into pieces one after another. The people of the god's manor who had been recuperating in their rooms also hurriedly escaped from their rooms with their injuries. Of course, there were also those who were too slow to escape, and those who did not escape were definitely dead. However, Azure didn't care about how many people he had accidentally killed. To him, most people were ants that weren't worth paying attention to. Therefore, the deaths of those people had nothing to do with him. If he wanted to blame someone, he could only blame that ignorant old woman, Fog Ice. Its patience was limited. And Wu Chen had already provoked it. At this moment, it felt that it was no longer as simple as just trying to hold Wu Ling back. However, it would not kill Wu Ling either. On the one hand, the two of them were equal in strength and it was difficult to determine the winner. On the other hand, it was the spirit of the God-protecting tower and had the responsibility to protect the divine world. Therefore, it could not kill Wu Ling personally, even if Wu Ling was a stolen divine master. However, he could still teach Wu Xian a lesson. One had to know that Wu Xiao might have been injured. This was a rare opportunity. Song did not have any noble sentiment of not taking advantage of others when they were in danger. What it pursued was take advantage of your illness and take your life. So, don't blame it for being despicable. With that in mind, Sung destroyed the magnificent god's manor with even more fearlessness. A large portion of the people in the god's manor had been scared silly by Tsang's domineering attitude. Their legs were trembling, and they did not dare to stop the fierce Totoro from destroying the god's manor. Seeing that Azure had only flicked its fur a few times and sneezed a few times, the gorgeous divine lord's estate had been reduced to ruins. Other than being dumbfounded, there was no other reaction. Fortunately, Azure didn't take it out on them. Otherwise, they would have been so scared that their legs would have gone soft. In fact, many people wanted to escape from Tsang's territory, but those who had this thought didn't even have the strength to lift their legs. So, they could only stand there stupidly with their heads lowered, trying to lower their presence. Your Excellency Xian Yi, you have to think of a way. If this continues, the God Lord's estate will become the laughing stock of the entire God world. Seeing this, Huang Wei and Xia Yi sent a message to Xian Yi at the same time. Xian Yi was the strongest among the three of them. Therefore, whenever there was a major problem that could not be solved, the other two would first ask for his opinion. This time was no exception. Chapter 2051, Wanton Destruction, 3, Unless the God Lord appears, there's no other way. Xian Yi shook his head helplessly. At this moment, almost all the buildings within 100 miles of the Divine Lord's estate had collapsed. The only thing that was intact was probably the surrounding walls of the Divine Lord's estate. However, he believed that these walls were probably a cover for the Divine Lord's estate on purpose. After all, with the wall's obstruction, even if outsiders heard the explosion, they would not know what had happened to the Divine Lord's estate. In this way, the Divine Lord's estate could still retain some of its face. After all, rumors stopped at the wise. However, he was very sure that if the Divine Master didn't show up, the wall would be destroyed. Xian Yi didn't know what he was feeling at the moment. He was excited, but at the same time, he was also a little sad. After all, he had lived in the Divine Master's estate for a long time and had a deep feeling about this place. Now that he saw that this place had become a ruin, his heart was filled with mixed feelings. In contrast to Xian Yi's complicated thoughts, Leng Ruoxue and the rest were extremely depressed. None of them had thought that Tsang's temper would be so big and that his destructive power would be so strong. The moment it exploded, the buildings in the Divine Master's residence became the sacrificial objects of the fog. Even the secret underground chambers were not spared. Through the light screen, Leng Ruoxue and the rest could see that many secret chambers had been destroyed and the real and fake clones inside were all exposed. In particular, Wu Yan's avatar was shaking its huge flower in anger. The petals on its body trembled violently to show its anger. However, the avatar did not dare to act rashly and remained in the blood pool that had been destroyed long ago. When Leng Ruoxue saw the petals of the clone turn from fiery red to dark red, and finally to black red, she knew that the clone must be feeling extremely aggrieved. However, what made it even more aggrieved was yet to come. At the thought of this, Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but laugh to herself. She was in a good mood. Seeing this, Aojia could not help but ask, "Little girl. The God Lord's estate has been reduced to ruins. Aren't you worried at all? This would be very disadvantageous for them to obtain the petals of the rime ice." "What's the use of worrying? It's already been destroyed." Leng Ruoxue replied calmly. In reality, how could she not be worried? The God Lord's estate was now a barren wasteland, and the hiding place of Fog Phoenix's main body could not be preserved. Without the guidance and obstruction of the surrounding buildings, they would naturally have to spend a lot of effort to find the coordinates of the secret room again. This would undoubtedly waste more of their time, but since things had come to this, they could only accept it. More importantly, as long as Tsang Neng could help them hinder Fog Phoenix, it did not matter if they spent more time. At the same time, she couldn't help but sigh in her heart. As expected of a formation that could hide one's body, it was actually not destroyed by Azure. From this, it could be seen that the fog ice had spent a lot of effort to protect the main body, but this was only right. AI. Hearing Leng Ruoxue's words, Aojia could not help but sigh heavily. "Sister, don't worry. I know the coordinates of that secret room very well. I won't be unable to find it. Glancing at the dejected Ao Jia, Qing Ju, who knew what Leng Ruoxue was thinking, said with a smile. Really? Little green vessel, you're amazing. Hearing this, Ao Jia was happy. He was no longer depressed over the fact that the Divine Master's residence had become a ruin. After his joy, he could not help but gloat, hee hee. This time, Wu Xiao was going to have a headache. Wouldn't it have been fine if she had come out earlier? And you're wasting our time. If she could come out, she wouldn't be closing her eyes like this. Leng Ruoxue said after some thought. Right now, she could more or less guess that Fog Phoenix might have met with some trouble, and this trouble was nothing more than being injured. Otherwise, Fog Phoenix would have jumped out long ago. Even so, she didn't dare to go to the destroyed secret room where Fog Ripple's main body was hidden. Therefore, she and the others could only wait patiently. You're saying that she might be injured? Uncle Long made a guess after hearing Leng Ruoxue's words. Yes. Leng Ruoxue nodded her head. This possibility was very high. Then what are we waiting for? Let's quickly find her original body. We can leave after we get the petals. Ao Jia said anxiously after hearing Uncle Long's words. Do you think that Ramice is an idiot? The fact that she didn't appear means that she's very confident in her original body. If we rashly go and take the petals from her original body, do you think she'll still not come out? Uncle Long looked at Ao Jia as if he was an idiot. He believed that the reason why Fog was not coming out despite Song's threat was because she thought that Song would not do anything to her. Otherwise, she would not be so calm. Yes. In Uncle Long's eyes, Wu Xian's performance was absolutely calm and composed. At the same time, Uncle Long also had a trace of admiration for Wu Xian. Although that woman was not popular in some aspects, her temperament was worth learning from. In fact, Wu Yan was not as calm as Uncle Long had said. At this moment, she was so angry that she was about to explode because the secret room she had stayed in had been destroyed by Tsang. Except for a transparent barrier that was still dutifully acting as a barrier between her and the outside world, she could be considered to have appeared in front of everyone without any concealment. However, with the existence of the barrier, it was impossible for outsiders to see her. However, everything outside was clear to her. She didn't even need to use her divine sense to see everything outside. Looking at the God Lord's manor that she had carefully designed and decorated, now in ruins, the anger in Ripple's heart doubled. There was a taste of blood in her throat, and then, poochie. With a few sounds, she spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. The bright red blood splattered on the ground, even the restriction was not spared. Looking at the blood dripping from the restriction, forming a small stream and dripping down, Fog Ripple felt pained. Blood. This was her most precious blood. Furthermore, it was her most precious blood from her heart. Although there were only a few drops, it would have taken her at least several hundred years to accumulate these few drops. But now, it was all destroyed in an instant. She hated it so much. At this time, she wished she could eat Song's flesh and drink Song's blood. Unfortunately, although she had been drooling over Tsang for a long time, she was unable to succeed because that guy could only look and not eat. Who asked it to be an artifact spirit? As an artifact spirit, it was naturally impossible for it to be as hot-blooded as humans or beasts. As long as she thought of this, she felt that it was a pity. One had to know that Azure was also born from chaos. However, that fellow was not a human with flesh and blood. How could she not feel regretful? Just as Mist Ripple was sighing, her heart suddenly skipped a beat. An ominous premonition welled up in her heart. Immediately after, her pupils constricted and the anger in her heart exploded like a storm. That damned Sung. He actually went to her clone. That pair of annoying claws that made people want to chop off when they saw it actually seemed to be unintentionally stroking her avatar. Suddenly, Wu Ling felt the hair on her body stand up and a chill ran down her back. How detestable. What was this guy trying to do? Wu Xiao's nervous heart was in her throat, especially when she saw Tsang's sharp claws, which were emitting a frighteningly cold light, drawing on her huge flower petals. She was so scared that she broke out in cold sweat. If it was someone else, she might not be afraid. After all, her clone could not be destroyed so easily. But, this guy in front of him was Tsang. That guy had always done whatever he wanted. He had never put her, the Divine Master, in his eyes. He wasn't afraid of her. More importantly, if that guy wanted to destroy her clone, it would be as easy as turning over his hand. Seeing this scene, no matter how much Wu Chen tried to comfort herself, she couldn't calm down. She had already destroyed one of her clones, and she could not afford to destroy this one as well. Otherwise, her strength would be greatly reduced. With this thought in mind, she flashed out of the restriction. At the same time, Azure's sharp claws were about to grab the huge flower. It really didn't like this flower. Since Rime Ripple didn't want to come out, it could only vent its anger on this broken flower. It believed that destroying this flower would definitely make Rime feel heartache. Hee hee. Laughing a few times in his heart, Tsang didn't hesitate to grab the flower path. However, before he could do anything, he felt a terrifying aura appear beside him. Stop! Following a loud shout, a red figure appeared behind Azure. Azure turned around and smiled at the red figure. Ugly freak. You're finally willing to come out. Blue laughed very happily and very wretchedly. Seeing that he was about to complete his task, Blue's mood was very good. However, Wu Xiao's mood was the exact opposite. Seeing Tsang's annoying smile, Wu Xiao, who was holding back a wave of anger in her heart, almost vomited blood again. Tsang actually went to Wu Xiao and said, "Ugly monster. I haven't seen you for a long time. Why do you look more haggard? Ayaya. You're really too pitiful. Are you too busy every day and you can't take it? It's okay, you can tell me. I'm happy to share your burden. What are you doing here?" The furious Wu Xiao ignored Tsang's seemingly concerned words and asked directly. "I miss you, so I'm here to catch up with you, okay?" Tsang said with a face full of anticipation. His dark and bright eyes were moist like shining black diamonds as he stared unblinkingly at Wu Jing. Chapter 2052, Fluff vs. Petals, 1, You miss me? Wu Yan's beautiful eyes narrowed as she asked in disbelief. Her heart was constantly thinking about this guy's intentions. One must know that she knew better than anyone that this guy was definitely the kind of person who wouldn't come to the temple for no reason. If there wasn't something particularly important, he wouldn't even bother to appear in front of her. Therefore, she knew in her heart that this madman definitely didn't come here for good. She still remembered that the last time Tsang had appeared in front of her was 1,000 years ago. At that time, it was for one of its subordinates. Because that subordinate had offended it, Tsang had come to ask her for it. The time before that, Azure had appeared to ask her for a few of her leaves. Even before that, Azure had also come to her for various reasons, and every time, it would make her heart ache. However, she couldn't do anything to this guy. Not only was this fellow extremely thick-skinned, but it was also extremely willful and stubborn. No matter what you said, as long as it had made up its mind, it would definitely do it. Otherwise, it would continue to make a fuss like before, until you were upset and had no choice but to agree to its request. But this time, because she didn't appear in time, this destructive madman had destroyed her divine lord's estate. How could she not be furious? But even though she was angry, she was at her wit's end with this scoundrel. She might not be able to beat him if she hit him, and if she scolded him, he would go in one ear and out the other. She didn't care at all, so she really didn't know what kind of attitude she should use to face Tsang, even though she hated him to the core. If she could, she really wanted to kill this annoying Totoro in front of her. Because of it, she disliked all Totoros in the divine realm. She knew that she was taking her anger out on them, but she didn't dare to do anything to the Totoro clan. If Azure found out, she wouldn't be able to live in peace. For tens of millions of years, the person she feared the most was definitely not you, but the annoying Totoro in front of her. When he went crazy, this guy wouldn't give anyone face. With this kind of thinking, she generally adopted an attitude of tolerating if she could. If she couldn't bear it, she had to endure it. At most, she would find some unlucky people to vent her anger on after the matter. Just thinking of this, Fog Ice felt aggrieved, especially when she saw Tsang's face that deserved a beating. The anger in her heart grew uncontrollably and spread to her whole body like a spark of fire. However, Tsang didn't care whether this old woman was angry or not. Moreover, it wasn't clear that in just a short time, Fog Ice's mind had already turned 1,000 times. Even if it knew, it would still have this attitude. Grinning, Tsang said to Ripple Mist seriously, "Why won't I miss you? After all, we've been friends for so many years, right? However, you don't seem to miss me at all." Sigh. It'll be sad like this. As he spoke, Tsang's expression became more and more dazzling. Fortunately, everyone present knew that Tsang wasn't a pitiful person. Otherwise, those who didn't know the truth would definitely think that Tsang was being bullied. But now, no one would think so. In fact, in their hearts, Tsang had already risen to the level of a demon, causing their hearts to be in chaos. When Wu Jing heard this, she was so angry that her whole body trembled. It would be strange if this damn guy missed her. Although they didn't see each other often, she knew Tsang too well. In her opinion, Tsang was definitely the greatest demon in the world, even more detestable than the one in the 9 Nether prison. After all, that person was far away and it wasn't easy to meet him. However, Tsang could appear in front of her at any time, and every time he appeared, it was definitely not for good. It wasn't to say that she would be in a mess, but it was almost there. "Little Lien, aren't you too excited? Calm down. Be careful of a heart attack." Seeing Wu Xian's reaction, the expression on Tsang's face immediately turned to worry, and his dark eyes became more moist, as if he was worried to the point of crying at any time. "You're the one who should be careful. You're the one with heart disease." Hearing Tsang's words, Fog Ripple gritted her teeth in anger, her beautiful pale face flushed red from her anger, but her complexion looked much better than before. "Little Lieni, I know that women don't mean what they say, so don't quibble. If you're sick, you must be treated. You'll have to keep it obediently." Wu Ling's words made Tsang completely unconcerned, and he only said what he wanted to say. Moreover, his sympathetic eyes followed Wu Ling closely, causing the anger in Wu Lien's heart to explode. Wu Xian took a few deep breaths and kept telling himself to stay calm and not to be fooled by this guy. Otherwise, wouldn't he get what he wanted? "What do you want?" Wu Chen, who had calmed down a little, suppressed his anger and asked coldly. Now, she just wanted to get rid of this guy as soon as possible. She didn't want to continue chatting with it because she knew very well that she couldn't get a clear idea of what was going on with this guy. So, she just wanted to get rid of this god of plague as soon as possible. Unfortunately, how could the god of plagues be so easily sent away? Could he still be the god of plague in her heart? "I said, I wanted to catch up with you." Tsang, who was very clear about Fog's thoughts, said with a faint smile. Looking at his expression, it was as if he had really come to visit an old friend. However, this old friend did not seem to welcome him. Xian Yi, who was standing not far away, saw this scene and had a new understanding of Tsang's shamelessness. This guy was really too shameless. He clearly had an unspeakable purpose, but he kept saying that he wanted to reminisce about the past. Not to mention that Wu Xiao wouldn't believe him, even he wouldn't believe him. Not to mention, he knew Tsang's purpose. At this moment, Leng Ruoxue and the others who were watching the scene through the light screen had a new understanding of Tsang. They secretly decided that no matter who they offended in the future, they would never offend this fellow. Otherwise, it would definitely anger them to death. Now that they saw that Wu Xian was so angry that her whole body was trembling, but she had no way to vent her anger, their hearts were suddenly filled with deep sympathy for her. Fortunately, Tsang was on their side. Leng Ruoxue and the rest could not help but rejoice. Do you think I'm a 3-year-old child? At this time, after hearing Sung's words, she forced herself to calm down. At this moment, the coldness that was emitted from her body from time to time made the people in the God Lord's estate feel a cold current that they had never felt before. Immediately, everyone shivered and their minds recovered. Hearing this, Azure smiled happily. Aren't you just a child in my eyes? Enough of this nonsense, tell me why you're here. Mist gritted her teeth. She really didn't want to continue talking nonsense with Azure, so she asked again. I said, Sung was about to say that he was here to reminisce about the old days when he was rudely interrupted by fog. If you continue to say that, I won't have the time to talk to you. Wu Li's sharp eyes kept looking at Sung, and her tone was full of warning. Chapter 2053, Fluff vs. Petals, 2, Little Lien Lien. You're getting more and more impatient. AI. Is it because no one loves me when I'm old? Azure continued to change the topic, and his words had successfully touched the reverse scale of the fog, which was the biggest taboo of the fog. Damn it. You're not cute, you're the unloved one. Sung's words made Wu Xiao jump. She couldn't hide the anger in her heart. At this moment, she really wanted to cut this annoying fellow in front of her into 8 pieces. Unfortunately, there was still a trace of rationality left in her heart, but she told her not to do that. So, she endured it. Seeing that fog still maintained a trace of rationality, Sung was very disappointed. This woman was really not simple. No wonder he could become the Lord of the Divine Realm. However, it didn't want to see Wu Qin having a good time, so it continued to provoke her without fear of death. What, did I say something wrong? You're not cute to begin with, and no one loves you. I know it's not your fault that you've become an unwanted old woman, so you don't have to blame yourself. You're the Divine Master, so no one would dare to laugh at you. At most, they're just gossiping behind your back. Don't worry. I'm here, I won't let anyone say anything. After all, he was a Divine Master. How could he allow others to gossip at will? Don't worry. As long as I hear any gossip about you, I'll definitely stop it. Azure continued while adding in his heart, it can't hear. Naturally, he could not stop it. Sung's words caused Wu Xiao's body to be so angry that she was like a fallen leaf in the wind, trembling non-stop. It also successfully made her so angry that she couldn't speak. Seeing Mist Ripple's body tremble even more, Azure's mood improved and he took advantage of the situation to pursue, Little Ripple, don't be agitated. Calm down. You must stay calm. Calm your head. Get out of the Divine Master's estate. I don't want to see you. Mist Ripple couldn't take it anymore and finally asked him to leave. However, how could it be so easy to get rid of Tsung? Moreover, Tsung didn't like people asking it to get lost. One must know that it had always used the word, get lost, on others. Little Lien, you're too unrefined. It's not easy for me to come here, and not only are you not entertaining me, you actually want to send me away. I'm telling you, it's easy to invite a god, but hard to send him away. I won't leave unless you can satisfy my request. Otherwise, I'll just stay here. After hearing Wu Xiao's words, not only did Tsung not get angry, he even took the initiative to state his purpose. The people of the God Lord's estate once again had a deeper understanding of Tsung's shamelessness. This guy wasn't invited by them, okay? This Totoro had clearly come uninvited. Now, he was even blaming them. Ah no. He was relying on the Divine Master. However, they quite admired this Totoro. After angering the Divine Master half to death, it still had the courage to raise conditions. This was truly the #1 ox beast of the Divine Realm. Could it be that the Totoro clan was about to rise? Many people were guessing in their hearts because they could all see that although the Divine Master was so angry that he was about to vomit blood, he clearly could not do anything to the Totoro. Otherwise, how could the Totoro be alive if it dared to treat the Divine Master like this? But now, the Master God was half dead from anger, but this Totoro didn't even lose a hair. Seeing this, who would not understand that this Totoro was quite special to the Master God. It was to the point where even God Lords couldn't bear to kill them. Those who didn't know the truth would naturally think this way. However, Xian Yi, who knew the identity of this Totoro, didn't have such thoughts at all. In fact, he knew quite well that it wasn't that the Divine Master didn't want to kill this Totoro, but this guy couldn't be killed. Not only that, but the Master God had to tolerate the Totoro's provocation. Who asked it to have an extraordinary identity? AI. At this moment, he was deeply aware of the importance of status. The importance of having a strong backing. If he wanted to do as he pleased in the immortal realm, he could not do without either. Do you have any requests? After a long time, Wu Chen, who kept consoling herself, finally had a reaction. Hee. My request is very simple, you will definitely be able to satisfy it. Azure laughed. Don't talk nonsense. What request do you have? Wu Yan's patience had reached its limit. She felt that she was somewhat impressed by herself for being able to hold back and not make a move. You will agree to it, right? Sang didn't say anything and instead continued to ask. Hurry up and state your request. Wu Qing almost crushed his teeth from gritting them and furiously roared. First, say yes or no. Azure said stubbornly. As long as it's not too much, I'll agree to it, okay? Wu Jing compromised. This guy made her feel very powerless. I'm not going too far, definitely not. Don't worry. Azure hurriedly said, then, he bluntly said, give me one of your petals, but it has to be the one from your body. What did you just say? Upon hearing this, Mist Ripple was so angry that her eyes were spitting fire. Her desire to tear apart Azure's heart grew even stronger. This guy actually dared to ask for the petals on her body? This is not too much. Then what would be considered outrageous? One had to know that every petal on her body had grown after countless years of hard cultivation. They were also the symbol of her soul and strength, and were of utmost importance to her. After all, as long as her body was not destroyed, she would not die. Thus, in her opinion, every petal and leaf of her body represented her life, and could not be damaged. However, this damn guy actually dared to ask her for a petal? Wasn't this just looking for death? Although Azure had asked her for flower leaves in the past, that was only from her clone. So, in order to send it away, she had given him one. But now, it was impossible to get the petals from the main body. Why do you always want me to repeat myself? AI. It seemed that he was really getting old and couldn't understand what she was saying. I said I want a petal from your body, do you understand now? Azure waved his meaty claws and said helplessly. While he repeated, he didn't forget to deliberately be angry. However, right now, Wu Yan didn't have the mood to be idle. All her attention was now on the matter of her own petals. This time, Fog quickly gave an answer, you know that's impossible. Nothing is impossible in this world. Why don't I use one of my fur to exchange for it? Sung thought for a while and said with a pained expression, as if giving away one of his own fur was a painful thing. When he heard this, not only did the people from the God Lord's estate twitch their lips, even Leng Ruoxue and the others were speechless. Leng Ruoxue and the rest were speechless when they heard this. They didn't know what to say. They looked at the thousands of hairs on Sung's body, then at the sparkling red petals on the Fog clone. They couldn't find a way to compare the two. Moreover, the characteristics of plants and animals were absolutely different. Every leaf on a plant was of great importance to a plant, especially for plants like heavenly materials and earthly treasures. Even a single whisker on the plant was extremely valuable. However, the fur of an animal, besides defense, was more for keeping warm. Moreover, no one had ever heard of the use of a single fur, but it was different for a plant. Therefore, they didn't need to think to know that Wu Yan would never agree to this. Chapter 2054, Fluff vs. Petals, 3. However, what they wanted to know more was why Tsang had changed his mind. Previously, Azure had only promised to be responsible for holding off Fog Phoenix. They would have to do it themselves. However, they didn't expect that not only would Azure not do that, but he would also directly ask for the petals from Fog Phoenix. This fact made them puzzled. Azure's thoughts were too hard to guess. In fact, the reason why Azure had given up on his original plan and chose to directly ask for the petals from Rhyme was that he felt that Rhyme was too slow in doing things. He was a little angry. Moreover, he hoped that this matter could be resolved as soon as possible so that he could arrange training for his future master. Therefore, it was most suitable for him to come forward and ask for the petals from Rhyme. As for Len Ruoxue, it wasn't appropriate for her to appear in front of the fog. After all, the difference in strength between the two of them was too great. On top of that, the fog was injured. If the petal was stolen by someone else, the fog might go crazy. Therefore, after thinking about it, it felt that it was more appropriate to ask for the petal from the fog personally. After all, if the petal was taken away by it, the fog wouldn't be able to do anything even if it was angry. More importantly, Rhyme Ice knew it very well. She knew that it had always been barbaric and domineering. If it liked something, it would definitely try to get it. If it didn't give it, it would directly snatch it. Therefore, if it asked for it from the Fog Phoenix would definitely not be suspicious. In this way, its future master would have more time to grow. With this thought, it was even more determined to get the petals of the Rhyme Ice. Just as it had thought, when Fog Ice knew that Sung wanted a petal from its body, it had indeed thought of Bing Yao. It had also thought that Sung might have gotten together with Bing Yao. However, after thinking about it carefully, she felt that it was impossible because she knew Sung too well. This annoying fellow was a selfish villain. It had no friendship with Bing Yao at all. Back then, it did not help you, so it would not help Bing Yao now. Therefore, she quickly denied this thought. But no matter what reason Azure had for wanting the petals from her body, she would definitely not give it to him. She even wanted to use a strand of her hair to exchange for a petal that was very important to her. It was simply a fool's dream. Do you think that your fur can be compared to my petals? Knowing Sung's purpose, Wu Xiao calmed down and said with a sneer, her beautiful eyes full of sarcasm. Why not? They're all unnecessary things on my body anyway, so it's no big deal to change them. You should know that every single hair on my body is very important to me. Azure Beard said. You really have the nerve to say that. You're getting more and more shameless. Although Wu Xiao was calm, she almost vomited blood when she heard Sung's words. She also had a new understanding of Sung's shamelessness. Thanks for the compliment. Wu Xiao's words made Sung very happy, and his face also revealed a happy expression. Those who didn't know would definitely think that he had really been praised. In fact, that was simply a false statement. When Fog Ice saw Sung's appearance, she rolled her eyes and said, I'm not complimenting you. I can also tell you clearly that you can't even think about exchanging one of your hairs for a petal from my body. Then I'll use 2 strands of fur to exchange for it. 2 for 1, you won't lose out. After thinking about it, Azure said in an even more pained tone. Not even 2. Wu Chen roared without caring about his image. She really wanted to beat someone up. How could this damn guy be so annoying? She was so angry that she wanted to scratch the wall. Those few will do. Name a number, I'll consider if it's less than 100. Sung said with some grievance, his small eyes still floating towards Wu Xiao. Even if you give me all the hair on your body, I still won't let you. The cold air on Wu Xian's body rose sharply and she roared again. Her towering chest kept moving up and down because of her anger. After hearing Wu Xian's words, the grievance on Sung's face became even heavier. Little Lian, don't be like this. Let's have a good discussion. A petal is nothing to you, so why are you so stingy? Sung stole a glance at Wu Xiao and carefully discussed it. However, Wu Xiao didn't give him a good face and her face was getting darker and darker. Seeing this, Sung said, Little Lian, I've noticed that after not seeing you for so long, your temper has become even worse, A woman can't be like this. A woman should be gentle and cute. No man will like you if you're so fierce. Tsang once again brought up Wu Ai's sore spot and immediately, Wu Ai exploded. What does this have to do with you? Just take care of yourself. I don't need you to worry about my matters. The consequences of Rhyme getting angry were very serious, but the other party didn't care at all. So, Rhyme's anger was forcibly suppressed in her heart, which made her heart ache so much that it clenched. Her eyes looking at Tsang became more and more unfriendly. Originally, she was able to hold back her anger and maintain a trace of rationality. After Tsang's repeated provocations, she was on the verge of exploding. However, Tsang didn't seem to know it and acted like nothing had happened. He still said, I did it for your own good. After all, we've known each other for so many years. It's only natural for us to care for each other and help each other. You really shouldn't be treating me like this, Sai. It really breaks my heart. At the same time, beads of water appeared in his dark and bright eyes, turning misty. Then, he changed the topic and continued, Little Lien, it's also on account of our many years of friendship that I'm being nice to you. If you don't appreciate it, I can't do anything about it, but I must have your petals. So, if you don't give it to me, I'll have to take it by force. At that time, you won't just lose a single petal, so you better think about it carefully. After Tsang finished speaking, everyone present finally understood. In fact, this was what this Totoro wanted to say the most, right? Pretending to be wronged and pitiful was really not suitable for this powerful bull beast. When they heard Tsang say that they were going to snatch it by force, everyone nodded in agreement. This was more like the performance of the Totoro just now. All talks and discussions were over. Snatching by force was the way to go. And this powerful and domineering Totoro was obviously more suitable for this kind of thing, so don't pretend to be pitiful. They looked awkward, but in fact, they wanted to shout, there are no outsiders here. We all know what kind of person you are. Are you threatening me? Tsang's words made Rhyme rather angry. However, she had no choice but to be apprehensive because she was very clear that this annoying fellow would definitely do such a thing. This fellow was a beast. I'm not threatening you. I just hope that you can understand the current situation. You should know that once I have something I'm interested in, I must get it. So, you'd better be tactful. Azure spoke the truth and no longer pretended to be pitiful. In any case, he had already made his words very clear. Whether Fog would agree or not, it was up to her to decide. And if she really didn't agree, then she couldn't blame it. Tsang's words caused Wu Xiao to think carefully. Her half-closed eyes were filled with flames of anger. Unfortunately, she had nowhere to vent her anger. Having known Blue for a long time, she knew that Blue was a madman who kept his word. Since it had said so, if she didn't give it the petal, Blue would definitely do something like a bandit. And if it succeeded, it was hard to say how much of a loss she would suffer. In short, it definitely wouldn't be small. However, if she was threatened by Azure and obediently handed over the petals from her own body, she felt that it would be a slap to her face. After all, she was the lord of the divine world, how could she be threatened? How would she convince the public in the future? Therefore, for a moment, Wu Yan was in a dilemma. Looking at Fog's expression, Tsang clearly knew what Fog Ripple was thinking, so he lit a fire and said, Little Lien, you have to consider it carefully. I just want a petal. Give it to me and we will be fine. Of course, if you want to fall out with me, I'm not afraid, but you have to think about the impact on yourself, right? If the Divine Master loses the hearts of the people, have you thought of the consequences? Tsang Na's words were sincere and sincere. It seemed as if he was saying this for her own good, but she couldn't deny that Tsang's words weren't just to scare her. The only reason she was able to sit firmly on the Divine Master's position was because she had done a great job on the surface. However, only she knew that the Divine Master's position was like a volcano to her, it could erupt at any time. However, no matter how she thought about it, she was unwilling to hand over a petal of her own body. One should know that a petal needed at least 1,000 years to grow, and handing over a petal meant that she would lose 1,000 years of cultivation. How could she bear to do so? But if he didn't give it, this damn guy would definitely not let it go. Who knew what kind of outrageous things it would do? As she thought about it, her heart was in a mess. Chapter 2055, Return with a Bountiful Harvest. 1. Seeing the fog's furrowed brows and angry eyes, Azure obediently returned a silly smile. Then, he lay on the ground and extended 2 sharp claws, flicking the petals on the body of the fog clone. The petals trembled and then drooped down as if resigned to fate. Azure used its claws to playfully flick the petals, but the corner of its eyes didn't miss the reactions of everyone present. However, what it was most interested in was the reaction of the flower in front of it. He really wanted to ruthlessly destroy a flower. At the same time, Azure's claws grabbed onto a thick, crystal-like petal. Just as he was about to tear it off, an angry roar sounded in his ears. Damn it! What are you doing? Sung dug his ear and looked at the owner of the voice unhappily. Little Lien, why are you so loud? I'm not deaf. You really gave me a big scare. I'm asking you what you're doing. Grandpa and I. Miro suppressed her anger and asked angrily. I didn't look at him properly, and this guy wants to do bad things again. Couldn't its claws be more obedient? I didn't do anything. It's just a little boring, quickly decide. Don't be so insipid. Be a tough girl and make a quick decision, okay? When Sung opened his mouth, he could anger people to death. And when Fog Ripple heard Sung's words, she almost fainted. Damn it, she was a woman, why did she have to act like a tomboy? He still dared to complain about her. Shouldn't she consider such an important matter carefully? Those were the petals of her body, which represented her life and her thousands of years of cultivation. They were not ordinary wild flowers and weeds. The more she thought about it, the angrier she got. However, when she saw Tsang, who was acting dumb and smiling at her, she deeply felt what it meant to be powerless. Fuck. This guy was clearly a bad guy, but he still pretended to be an innocent little white rabbit. If he was an innocent little white rabbit, then could there be any other innocent creatures in this world? Moreover, she really wanted to stamp off Azure's disobedient claws so that it wouldn't have any ideas about her petals. However, she only thought about it and didn't dare to put it into action. At the thought of this, she felt even more depressed and conflicted. AI. How could there be such a detestable thing in the world? She really wanted to scratch the wall. However, before she could finish sighing, she was interrupted by Azure's demonic voice. Little Lien. You're getting more and more dilly-dallying when doing things now. Quickly take out your charm from back then and give this lord a petal from your original body. Hurry up, this lord's patience is limited. Wu Xiao was a little angry and could only glare at Song, but she couldn't say anything to refute him. What about me? Do you agree or not? Or do you want me to do it myself? Azure said with a threatening tone. Can you tell me what you want the petals from my body for? Taking a deep breath, Fog Ice forced herself not to argue with the impolite Azure. Instead, she directly asked Azure why he wanted the petals, even though he might not tell the truth. Feed the pigs. Azure smiled faintly and said 2 words. As soon as these 2 words were spoken, the entire place fell silent. Even Len Ruoxue and the others, who were watching the screen from their bracelets, were all silent. After a long while, Ao Jia was the first to speak. Little girl, it said your senior brother is a pig. Yes, it even said that my master is an idiot. Len Ruoxue nodded. In other words, she was saying that this was no big deal. Moreover, although she hadn't been with Dian Song for a long time, she knew that he wouldn't be able to say anything nice. Calling senior brother a pig was probably already giving him face. Moreover, she did not mention that senior brother was a pig by name. Thus, Len Ruoxue would not automatically make the connection. After hearing the words feed the pigs, Fog's mind went blank for a short while. After regaining her senses, Fog couldn't bear it anymore and roared, "Damn it, you're actually going to feed the flower petals on my body to the pigs? I can't. I feel that this is definitely making the best use of everything. Moreover, if the pig ate the petals on your body, it would definitely grow fat and strong, hee hee. I'm drooling just thinking about it." Azure intentionally laughed in an exaggerated manner. "You're the artifact spirit." "It's an artifact spirit." Ripple gritted her teeth and warned. This was the first time she had heard of an artifact spirit raising pigs to eat meat. This was truly a world-changing story. "I know. So what if it's an artifact spirit? Are you looking down on artifact spirits?" Hearing this, Tsang asked in a slightly aggrieved manner. The people of the Divine Master's estate had not reacted from the pig-feeding incident before they were knocked unconscious by the word, artifact spirit. Oh my god. The Divine Master said that this guy was an artifact spirit? Although everyone knew that artifact spirits could exist without their bodies after cultivating to a certain level, this was only a legend to many people. Today, this legendary artifact spirit was actually in front of them and was treated as a small beast. This was a huge blow to their vision. Moreover, they couldn't tell at all that the Totoro in front of them was an artifact spirit. They were more curious about what artifact spirit this guy was. If it was such a powerful artifact spirit, wouldn't its original divine artifact be even more powerful? This fact was too exciting. However, none of them could figure out what kind of artifact spirit Azure was, and they didn't dare to ask. As a result, all of their faces turned red, but they could only endure it. However, those curious gazes would always drift towards Tsang from time to time. Tsang also graciously allowed everyone to look at him and was extremely calm. "Who dares to look down on you?" Wu Xiao said unhappily. Looking at Tsang's calm appearance, the anger in her heart couldn't be suppressed. "That's good. Since you don't look down on me, then quickly give me a petal from your body and let me feed it to the pigs." "AI. My pig is waiting. I'm so hungry, I'm howling," Azure said worriedly. Azure's words caused Ripple to glare at it for a long time. While Ripple was staring at it, it even put on a very casual appearance and would occasionally exchange glances with Ripple, causing Ripple to be even angrier. However, after waiting for a long time, Ripple still didn't say whether to give it the petals. Azure's patience was running out. "Little Yen, are you going to give me the flower petals or not? Give me a straightforward answer. If you don't, let's not waste everyone's time. I'll just snatch it." Tsang's words were quite domineering. Everyone in the Divine Lord's estate broke out in cold sweat and their hearts trembled. Although Tsang's words were not directed at them, they knew that if the Divine Lord really gave them the petals, he would definitely find an unlucky person to vent his anger. Naturally, they did not want to be the unlucky person to vent his anger. Thinking of this, many people were afraid and were already thinking about how to get themselves out of this matter. "I'll give it to you." Wu Chen gritted his teeth so hard that they almost shattered as he spoke in a vicious manner. Chapter 2056, Return with a Bountiful Harvest, 2. When Len Ruoxue and the others in the bangle heard this, they heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts. It was a good thing that the other party was finally willing to give them the flower petals. However, the petals hadn't really been in their hands yet, so they were still a little worried. However, with Tsang here, they believed that Fog wouldn't dare to go back on their word. With this thought in mind, they immediately relaxed. "Little girl, there's hope for Bingyao." Uncle Long's mood relaxed, and the smile on his face grew. Coming to U City and getting the petals of Fog Phoenix's body was the best result, but what made him even happier was that they were all safe and sound. Moreover, with Tsang standing out, Fog Phoenix wouldn't suspect them of this matter. This way, Shuer would have more time to strengthen herself, which was also Tsang's goal. Len Ruoxue nodded happily. This matter was all thanks to Tsang. Originally, Tsang said that he wouldn't help, but who would have thought that in the end, he would still take the initiative to help them ask for the petals. It seemed like Tsang was also a fellow who had a sharp tongue but a soft heart. She gave Tsang a definition. However, if Tsang knew that Leng Ruoxua thought of it this way, he would definitely refute it. But in general, this matter was considered a success. However, after Wu Xiao promised to give Tsang the flower petals, she didn't do anything. Seeing this, Tsang couldn't help but urge, "Little Ripple, give me the flower petals, it's more refreshing. Just you wait." She glared at Tsang hatefully, then unwillingly disappeared from her spot. Tsang was lying on the ground, waiting in boredom. His dark eyes sized up the people present from time to time, scaring them so much that their little hearts began to tremble again. Fuck. The pressure that this artifact spirit beast gave them was too great. However, when they thought about how even the Divine Master could not do anything to this fellow, they finally felt a little more balanced in their hearts. After a long time. Just as Azure was starting to get impatient, Wu Ice finally returned. When Tsang saw the fog ice, he couldn't help but curse. "You ugly freak. You're so slow even when taking a petal, no wonder no one wants you." This time, it wasn't called Little Ripple anymore. In any case, it was certain that as long as it wanted something, Rime Ice wouldn't dare to not give it. "If you don't give it to me, I'll snatch it." This was its principle in doing things. "Take the flower petals and get out of here." "Here you go." Rime didn't pay attention to Tsang's attitude and words, but directly asked him to leave. Then, very unwillingly, she handed over a bright red petal. Who knew that after Tsang took it, he was somewhat dissatisfied. "I say, ugly freak. You're too stingy. The petals you gave me are so small. They're not even as big as the petals on your clone. You're able to take out such a small thing." Azure criticized the flower petal with a look of displeasure on his face. His pitch-black eyes were filled with disdain, but as he said this, he kept the flower petal. In reality, although this petal wasn't big in Azure's eyes, it was still close to a meter in diameter. It wasn't considered small. However, compared to the other petals of fog, it was very weak. Hence, Azure was very dissatisfied. However, he also knew that asking Fog to give him a petal was already enough to make her feel pain to death. It was obvious that Fog wouldn't take her biggest and best petal for him. Hence, he was just looking for trouble. When Wu Xiao heard Tsang's words, she was indeed furious. "Don't fall for this scoundrel's trick." However, when she heard Tsang say this, she couldn't completely control her anger. This guy was clearly taking advantage of her and still acting innocent. "I've given it a petal, and it's still not satisfied." He was really looking for a beating. "If you're not satisfied, then give it back to me. At most, we'll fall out with each other." Wu Jing said with a look of going all out. She had really had enough. She had tolerated the other party again and again, but this guy was getting more and more insatiable. It was really preposterous. Hearing that Wu Xiao was really angry this time, Zhang Yiran laughed innocently and said, "AI. Forget it, I know it's not easy for you to cultivate, so it doesn't matter if these petals are small. It's more than enough to feed the pigs, but you have to compensate me with something else." How can you be so shameless? Also, don't let me hear the words, "feed the pigs," again, or else, you'll bear the consequences. Fog couldn't do anything to Tsang and could only threaten him. In fact, she wouldn't easily fall out with Tsang. The consequences were too serious, at least for now, she couldn't bear it. "Alright. I won't say that I'm feeding the pigs, but you can't say that I'm shameless. Furthermore, you have to compensate me with something else. Otherwise, I won't leave." Azure emphasized shamelessly, making everyone sigh. However, they knew that the Master God couldn't do anything to this Totoro. If it was anyone else, the Master God would have killed them. "What else do you want? I can only give you the petals this once, don't even think about asking me for more," Rime hatefully said. She was so angry that she was going crazy. "Give me more money." "I don't have any pocket money," Sangda said shamelessly. Who do you think I am to you? Do I have to give you pocket money?" The flames of anger on Wu Xian's body could no longer be concealed. I'm not this annoying person's mother, yet I still have to give him pocket money. What the hell is this? Besides, you're just an artifact spirit. You don't eat or drink. What's the use of money? It's useful. I'll just watch, okay? I like to watch. Azure said matter-of-factly, the smile on its face was as annoying as it could get. And its answer, no matter how good-tempered a person was, would probably be driven mad. Fuck. Who would ask for money from others just because they like to look at money? However, it didn't seem to be a big deal for such words to come out of the mouth of this domineering Totoro. Everyone thought. However, Sung didn't ask them for money, so they naturally couldn't understand Wu Yan's feelings. Wu Yan was angry, and the anger in her heart couldn't be described with words. However, to her, the most precious flower petals had been given, so those worldly possessions were nothing. Thinking this way, Wu Yan directly took out a storage ring and handed it to Tsung, saying, "Pick your own. Hurry up and get lost after you're done." She wanted to get rid of Tsungda as soon as possible, so she planned to spend money to avoid disaster. Azure took the ring and scanned it with his divine sense. Then, he nodded in satisfaction. "Then I want stand on ceremony." "Thank you." After speaking, Tsung disappeared. Seeing Tsung leave so easily, Fog couldn't believe it at first, but after reacting, she roared, "Tsung! Damn it! Get back here!" She only wanted to let Tsung pick a few items from the ring, but that bastard actually took all the storage rings. He's too hateful. Ever since she had felt something strange about the Divine Lord's estate, she had taken all the treasures she had collected over the years with her. The treasures in the ring were not all of her wealth, but they took up at least a third of it. However, Tsung had taken them away so easily. Moreover, Tsung had taken her most precious flower petal from her. Adding these two things together, she was about to explode with anger. Chapter 2057, Return with a Bountiful Harvest, 3, Azure. Wuchen roared angrily again, but only a gentle breeze responded to her. Ah! Wu Xian continued to roar crazily without caring about her image. Her voice even carried her pressure. Immediately, everyone in the God Lord's estate felt an extraordinary pressure. Those who were weaker and had injuries directly fainted. At this moment, a bang was heard. The sturdy walls of the God Lord's estate collapsed with a loud crash. Many people outside happened to hear the commotion and came to watch. At first, they didn't see anything, but when the walls fell, they saw everything that happened in the God Lord's estate. Seeing this, the onlookers were stunned for a moment before they immediately scattered like birds and beasts. Oh my God! After seeing this scene that he shouldn't have seen, what better time to run than now? As the onlookers ran, they did not forget to cover their faces with their hands so that they would not be killed by the people in the Divine Master's estate. Thinking of this, they ran even faster. Even their teleportation speed was almost twice as fast as usual. However, they had overdone it. Although Wu Xian was angry at this time, she did not think of venting her anger on them for the time being, because Wu Xian was so angry that her mind was blank and she could not think of anything at all. When Xian Yi saw this scene, he only gave Huang Wei and Xia Yi a look. The three of them led the people who were still in their clear minds in the Divine Master's estate and began to clean up the messy ruins. At the same time, Xian Yi heaved a huge sigh of relief. At least, Uncle Long and the others had finally achieved their purpose of coming here. They had not been exposed to the Divine Master. This was definitely good news for him. When she gradually calmed down, she suddenly realized that there was no one in front of her. Not far away, the three reverent gods of the Divine Master's estate were directing the crowd to clear the ruins. Seeing this, she disappeared in a flash. In a flash, Wu Jing appeared in the cell she had been to before. When the black-clothed man in charge of the prison saw Wu Xiao, he quickly came forward with a charming smile and said, "Divine Master, you've come." "Yes." "Humph." Ripple coldly snorted. Without saying anything else, she picked up a pitch-black whip covered in spikes. Then, with a wave of her hand, the whip flew towards one of the women. This woman was the woman she had whipped before. Wu Yan vented all her anger on the woman. In an instant, the woman's body was covered in blood, but the woman laughed happily, ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Fight. If you kill me, I'll be able to accompany master you. Upon hearing this, Wu Xian immediately dropped the whip and said coldly, you wish. I will not let you die. Then, she instructed the man in black, you. Torture them. I want them to suffer a fate worse than death. Yes. The black-clothed man quickly responded. Then, he picked up the whip that Wu Xiao had thrown away and whipped everyone in the cell. The black-clothed man could see that the divine master was in a very bad mood. Therefore, he became very careful. He was afraid that he would do something wrong and anger the divine master. If that happened, he might lose his life. The sound of whipping could be heard in the prison cell. It sounded, but it was not accompanied by wails, but loud laughter, wild laughter, and angry curses at Fog. Unfortunately, Fog Ripple's face remained expressionless when she heard all of this. In the past, when she was in a bad mood, she would come here to see these people being tortured and feel their angry eyes. She would be excited and agitated, but now, her mood did not ease at all. Her heart was still angry and depressed. This fact made Wu Jing more and more irritable. Suddenly, she shouted, stop fighting, make them shut up. Ah! The man in black was stunned and a little at a loss. Did he want them to shut up so that he could give them more mute medicine? However, Wu Xian did not give the man in black any answer. After roaring, her figure disappeared from the cell. A woman's heart was like a needle in the ocean. It was really hard to serve a divine master. The man in black couldn't help but secretly sigh when he saw that the fog ripple had suddenly disappeared without any warning. After Wu Xian left, she did not return to the ruined divine master's estate. Instead, she headed to the location of the guardian tower. When she stood at the foot of the mountain and looked at the tall, magnificent, towering, and majestic guardian tower, the anger in her heart instantly burst out. In a flash, Wu Xian had already arrived at the entrance of the god-protecting tower. Song! Get out here! Standing in front of the two doors of the god-protecting tower, Wu Xiao roared angrily. However, Azure didn't react. Song! Get out here! Song! Get out here! Wu Xian continued to roar, and the anger on her face grew deeper and deeper. Her entire body seemed to be spewing fire. Seeing that Sung Du didn't react to her shouting, Wu Xian mobilized most of her divine power and struck the god-protecting pagoda with all her might. Bang! With a loud sound, the huge divine power hit the god-protecting tower. However, it did not even leave a scratch on the god-protecting tower. Seeing this, Ripple Mist did not give up. Just as she was about to use her divine power to continue attacking the god-protecting pagoda, she was stopped by the leader of the men in black who had followed behind. God Lord, calm down. Don't fall for that guy's trick. The leader of the men in black saw the abnormal flush on Wu Xiao's face and couldn't help but ask worriedly. Don't you care? Get lost. I'm going to smash that bastard Sung out today. Wu Xiao shouted angrily. The anger in her heart was getting stronger and stronger. If she didn't let it out, she would go crazy. God Lord. Calm down. Money was small, but the body was big. You have to take care of your body, or else you'll be falling for someone else's trap. The man in black continued to persuade him. Right. I can't be tricked by that bastard Sung. However, I won't just let this matter go. Wu Yan finally calmed down a little. She thought for a while and found a way out for herself. She knew that she had lost a lot of face this time. If she didn't do something, she wouldn't be able to convince the public in the future. Otherwise, she wouldn't be so angry. But what could she do? For a moment, she couldn't think calmly about what was going to happen next, and could only sulk in her heart. After a while, she glared at the god-protecting tower and left with a flick of her sleeves. Seeing Wu Xiao leave, Song, who was in the god-protecting tower but had been pretending to be deaf and mute, couldn't help but complain, "What a miser. I only took some money from her and she's already here." "Did you just take a bit of money?" Leng Ruoxue, who was standing beside Song, laughed. After Song left, they had also left the Divine Lord's residence and came here. According to what she knew, Azure had even robbed the other party's storage ring and taken a petal from Fog Phoenix's body. It was no wonder that Fog Phoenix was so furious. Of course, that bit of money is nothing to that ugly woman. "Besides, I'm doing this for you," Song said with a hint of hidden bitterness. There seemed to be mist in his pitch-black eyes as he looked at Leng Ruoxue. Seeing this, Leng Ruoxue was helpless. This fellow was addicted to acting pitiful. However, Song really did it for her because he had already given her the flower petal and the ring. It was a meeting gift, and there were many good things in the ring. In short, they had returned with a full load. Of course, she basically took all the benefits. With this thought in mind, Leng Ruoxue could only cooperate and say, "Song is the best. Thank you for your present. No need to thank me, just treat me better in the future." Song's expression immediately turned to pride. Then, he jumped into Leng Ruoxue's arms and found a comfortable position to lie down. He ignored the sharp eyes that were shooting daggers at him from not far away and was very calm. Leng Ruoxue was helpless when she saw its current state, while the demon was furious. However, in the immortal realm, there was really nothing he could do to this fellow. This was the so-called saying, "A strong dragon cannot suppress a snake in its own territory." And Azure could definitely be considered the king of the snakes. However, the narrow-minded evildoer still secretly made a mark on Song. In the future, when he had the opportunity, he would definitely get back at him. Furthermore, this time, Song University was in the limelight again. Hence, his dissatisfaction with Song was almost bursting. However, he had a strong tolerance and did not show it at all. However, he kept shooting daggers at Song in the dark. However, Song was not a soft persimmon either. Hence, the two of them had actually fought countless rounds in secret. However, these small things were done behind Leng Ruoxue's back. Of course, it was impossible for Leng Ruoxue to be completely oblivious to the undercurrent between them. It was just that she ignored it because she was very clear that even though these two were fighting in the dark, they had a sense of propriety. On the other hand, small fights were more enjoyable. Hence, Leng Ruoxue treated this as a way of getting along between them. Then, the happy crowd returned with a full load. With Song, their return to the land of evil demons was much faster. In the blink of an eye, they were home. When Master Ning and First Elder, who were sitting in the garden, saw the people who suddenly appeared in the garden, they widened their eyes in disbelief and rubbed their eyes hard. Then, they asked carefully, "Shuer, you're back." "Godfather, Great Elder, we're back." Seeing her godfather and Great Elder's expressions, Leng Ruoxue could not help but laugh. These two old men's silly expressions were really too cute, weren't they? Chapter 2058, The Divine Master's Residence is Tofu, 1, Hee. It's good that you're back. You've been gone for so many days, we were so worried. Hearing Leng Ruoxue's voice, Master Ning was sure that Shuer had returned. "Little girl. How's the antidote for Bingyao coming along?" First Elder asked with concern. "I've already found it," Leng Ruoxue said with a smile. "That's good. We can finally rest assured. You didn't go out in vain." When Master Ning and the Great Elder heard this, they both let out a sigh of relief. "Oh, right. Godfather, First Elder, is everything all right at home?" Leng Ruoxue asked with concern. "It's all right, we're just a little bored. Those little guys find us annoying and don't really want to talk to us," the master of the Ning family complained. When he said this, his handsome face was full of grievances. "Yup. Those heartless little ones don't see anyone all day long. There are only the two of us in such a big house. There's no one else to talk to." The Great Elder agreed. "Ah. Are Lu Feng and the others not around? When Leng Ruoxue heard the two old men's words, black lines appeared on her forehead. She thought to herself, I haven't seen them for so long. Why did I find out that these two old men have become resentful husbands the moment I returned? Logically speaking, no one should have dared to provoke them. Humph. Don't even mention those little rascals. Once you guys left, they went straight into their rooms and didn't come out. Chen Guo and the others also stayed at the Yao family building. They said that it was convenient for them to stay there for business, so no one bothered about us. The first elder pitifully said. As he spoke, he kept peeking at Leng Ruoxue with a resentful gaze. His face was red with the words "You have to avenge us." A few big words. I didn't expect those stinky brats to work so hard. Not bad. Not bad. I'll have to reward them properly later. At this moment, Uncle Long, who had heard the first elder's words, spoke. It was obvious that he was going against the first elder's words. However, due to Uncle Long's imposing manner, the first elder did not dare to say anything. He could only look at Leng Ruoxue with an even more aggrieved gaze. When Leng Ruoxue saw this, she was helpless and could only change the topic. Godfather, Great Elder, you've worked hard during this period of time. I'll go get the antidote for senior brother first, and then I'll come back to accompany you. With that, Leng Ruoxue pulled the evildoer and ran off. In an instant, only the four old men were left in the garden, staring at each other. After Leng Ruoxue and the evildoer left, Uncle Long sized up the master of the Ning family and the Great Elder in surprise. He then asked, I haven't seen you two for a long time, and you've become more promising. In my opinion, it's not that they don't want to pay attention to you, but they're so annoyed by you that they don't dare to pay attention to you. Uncle Long's tone was absolutely certain, and it had to be said that Uncle Long was right. After hearing what Uncle Long had to say, the master of the Ning family and the first elder both said in a low voice, We're just saying. It's not a complaint. Hee hee. Looking at your aggrieved appearance, I really should have thrown you into the Yao family building to solicit business. It would definitely be a big hit. Uncle Long couldn't help but tease Master Ning and the Great Elder. However, when the master of the Ning family and the first elder heard this, their faces turned pale, and cold sweat broke out on their bodies. Was Uncle Long joking? You must be joking. They weren't too sure because Uncle Long often annihilated others with a smile. Therefore, they couldn't rule out the possibility that Uncle Long really had such thoughts. Thinking of this, the master of the Ning family quickly said, Uncle Long, you must be joking. The Yao clan's business is so good now, they don't need us to solicit business. After he finished speaking, he even wiped the cold sweat on his forehead, his little heart trembling non-stop. You're right, if you two go, you might even scare the guests away. It's tiring to be famous. Uncle Long sighed, but he was laughing in his heart. It was quite interesting to tease these two old men when he had nothing to do. Yup. That's right. The master of the Ning family and the Great Elder both nodded and let out a long breath at the same time. That was close. That's right, I want to go to the Yao clan building to take a look. If there's nothing else, come with me. Uncle Long said, looking at Master Ning and the first elder, who seemed to have escaped. The two people who were glad that they had escaped from Uncle Long's evil clutches immediately became listless when they heard this. However, they didn't dare to object, so they could only reply, all right, he said. Just like that, the Ning family's master and first elder followed behind Uncle Long and Ao Jia unwillingly, slowly walking to the Yao family building at the foot of the mountain in the land of demons. On the way, Uncle Long looked back at the master of the Ning family and the Great Elder, who were walking very slowly, and couldn't help urging, Are you two not able to use your legs? Why are you walking so slowly? Hurry up. Otherwise, it'll be dark soon. The two of them looked up at the sky. The sun was currently hanging high in the sky, emitting a dazzling light. It was still far from dark. However, the two of them didn't dare to disobey Uncle Long's words, so they could only speed up and catch up with the team. A moment later, the four of them arrived at the Yao clan building. As soon as they entered the Yao clan building, Uncle Long realized that business was really good. The entire first floor was filled with people. Cheng Wu, who had received the waiter's report, hurriedly came out from his private room to welcome Uncle Long and the others. "Uncle Long, you're back." Seeing Uncle Long and Ao Jia, Cheng Wu's face was filled with joy. "And, you guys have done a good job in building the Yao clan building while I was away." Uncle Long patted Cheng Wu's shoulder and praised him. "Hee hee. This is our main source of business at the moment, so of course we have to do our best," Cheng Wu said, slightly embarrassed. In reality, he did not dare to claim credit for this. If it was someone else who had such good resources, their business would also be as prosperous. Well said. As the two of them were talking, they had already entered their private room. As soon as they sat down, the waiter immediately served them tea and snacks. Not long after, delicious dishes were also delivered to the private room. When Uncle Long saw the waiter delivering the food, he was momentarily stunned. Why does this little fellow look so much like Ji Yun? He took a closer look. It really was Ji Yun. "Ji family's kid, why are you here?" Uncle Long asked curiously. "I'm studying here." Ji Yun's face was slightly red. "Study? Learn what? How do you receive guests?" Uncle Long teased. No. I'm here to learn how to cook. It'll only help to entertain the guests when there's a shortage of manpower," Ji Yun hurriedly explained. He was learning how to cook from the divine chef Lu Qi. However, he was still being tested by Lu Qi, so he naturally had to perform well. Thus, he became a brick that moved wherever there was a need for him. He was busy all day long like a small top. "I see." Uncle Long nodded in understanding, then asked, "How's your learning going?" Chapter 2059, The Divine Master's Residence is Tofu, 2, I haven't started learning yet. Divine Chef Lu Qi is still testing me, Ji Yun said, a little embarrassed. However, he knew that people with professional skills would not easily accept a disciple, so he had been waiting patiently. He believed that he would definitely be able to pass the test. "Oh. Then you better perform well, AI. It wasn't enough to only know how to roast meat. You'll get sick of it," Uncle Long said in a serious tone. Every time he thought about the roasted meat he had eaten before he left, his interest in it would be greatly reduced. Those things were originally made for Shuer by Ji Yun, but because of Bing Yao's incident, Shuer didn't have the time to eat them, and she probably didn't want to eat them either. So, in order not to waste them, he had eaten them. Now that he thought about it, he still lost the desire to eat the roasted meat. It was clear that the roasted meat had hurt him quite badly. "Yes, I will work hard," Ji Yun promised. Then, he carefully looked at Uncle Long and said in a soft voice, "Shuer is back too." "She's back, but she's very busy. You should study well with Lu Qi and don't disturb her now," Uncle Long said straightforwardly. He immediately dispelled Ji Yun's thoughts of returning to see Leng Ruoxue. Ji Yun unwillingly nodded and said, "I know," she said and left the room. After Ji Yun left, Cheng Wu asked, "Did you find Senior Bing Yao's antidote?" They all knew about Bing Yao's injury, but only those who were close to Leng Ruoxue knew about it. "Yes." Uncle Long nodded and stopped talking about it. Instead, he focused on eating the dishes in front of him. Seeing that, Ao Jia did not stand on ceremony. In the blink of an eye, almost half of the dishes in front of them were gone. Looking at the appearance of these two people in the scroll of wind and cloud, the master of the Ning family, the first elder, and Cheng Wu were all surprised. How long had it been since the two of them had eaten? After Uncle Dragon and Ao Jia finished their food, they saw the other three people's dumbfounded expressions. They said nonchalantly, "This dish tastes good. We're very satisfied." When the three of them heard this, they nodded their heads in unison. They thought to themselves, we've all eaten it clean, how can we not be satisfied? I also want to eat. At this time, a voice suddenly rang in their ears. Then, they saw a white lightning quickly appear on the table. This white lightning was Tsang. Looking at the snow-white Totoro wagging its big fluffy tail, Master Ning blinked and couldn't help but say, this little beast was brought back by Shuer, right? He vaguely remembered that Shuer had such a small Totoro on her shoulder. However, Shuer was in a hurry to get the antidote for Bing Yao, so he did not pay attention to the existence of this little Totoro. Now it seemed that this little thing was very likely Shuer's new pet. However, this Totoro only had a cute appearance. In reality, it did not have any great abilities. Therefore, he naturally did not pay too much attention to it. When Tsang heard Master Ning's words, he said with dissatisfaction, "You're the little beast. Your whole family is a little beastie." Tsang's words made the Ning family head dumbfounded. Did he say something wrong? Why did he get scolded? At the thought of this, Master Ning said with an aggrieved face, "Little guy, I'm not wrong. You're just a little beast. You're from the Totoro clan. Bah! You're the little beastie. You're from the Totoro clan. Who said that anyone who looks like a Totoro must be a Totoro? Which part of me looks like a weak life form?" Tsang rolled his eyes and said in an unpleasant tone. "Ah!" Hearing this, the master of the Ning family didn't know what to say. It seemed that this little beast had a great background. At the thought of this, he could not help but look at Uncle Dragon and Aogia for help. His eyes were filled with anticipation as he hoped that these two could give him an explanation. However, he was obviously going to be disappointed, because after hearing Wan Sung's words and seeing Master Ning's deflated appearance, the two were already laughing so hard that they couldn't stand it anymore. They didn't even have time to explain to him. Little guy, seeing that the master of the Ning family was quite pitiful, the great elder, as Master Ning's good friend, naturally stepped forward. Originally, he wanted to inquire about the origin of the Totoro in front of him, but he only said the 3 words, "little guy," and was interrupted by the angry Tsang. "You're the little guy. You bastard. How dare you call me little fellow? Are you looking to die? Little brat." Azure said angrily. When the great elder heard Tsang's tongue-twisting words, he felt a little dizzy. He didn't say anything. He had only called her little fellow, so why was he being scolded? From the looks of it, this was a bad-tempered. Ah! An unknown life form. After seeing the Ning family's master and first elder being defeated, Cheng Wu, who was also curious, did not dare to speak at all. Uncle Long and Aogia finally could not hold it in and laughed out loud, not caring about their image. Ha ha ha. The two of them laughed so hard that their image was completely ruined. Looking at Uncle Long and Aogia, who were laughing so hard that they almost rolled on the ground, Master Ning and the first elder felt even more depressed. Cheng Wu's curiosity was like a kitten that kept scratching at his heart. Moreover, knowing that the Totoro wanted to eat, Cheng Wu very tactfully took the initiative to bring some dishes over and place them in front of Tsang. As such, he was very honored to receive Tsang's admiring gaze. Immediately, Cheng Wu's heart felt a little light. After living for so long, Cold had never eaten much. However, ever since it ate Leng Ruoxi's food, it fell in love with it. Since Leng Ruoxue was busy preparing the antidote for Bing Yao, she naturally had no time for it. So, Cold left the Leng family's main residence and wandered around the demonic land. In a short period of time, it had successfully tamed the hearts of many beasts and made them follow its lead. It was also the beasts who told it about the Yao family. It knew that there was good food here, so it came here because of its reputation. As soon as it approached the Yao family building, Tsang discovered Uncle Long's aura and went straight to this private room. However, what made it angry was that the 2 little guys had actually eaten all the food, so in its anger, it vented its anger on the unlucky master of the Ning family and the great elder. Of course, those 2 guys also took the initiative to hit its muzzle, but now that they saw the delicious food, Tsang was obviously in a good mood. He didn't continue to make things difficult for the master of the Ning family and the great elder, but concentrated on eating the food in front of him. Tsang's eating appearance was quite elegant, in sharp contrast to its fiery temper. The Ning family master and the great elder saw that this little ancestor finally didn't aim the cannon at them, and they both breathed a sigh of relief. Logically speaking, with their status, there was no need for them to be afraid of this little thing of unknown origin. However, this little thing was Shuai's. Therefore, they were naturally tolerant of Tsang Duo. Of course, this was under the condition that they didn't know Tsang's identity. If they knew Tsang's identity, they definitely wouldn't be so relaxed. Chapter 2060, The Divine Master's Residence is Tofu. 3. Uncle Dragon and Ao Jia, the two evil-minded people, only wanted to watch the show. They had no intention of revealing Tsang's identity. In fact, without Tsang's permission, they didn't dare to reveal Tsang's identity. Otherwise, no one would be able to take it when this guy got angry. With the God Lord's estate as a warning, the two of them became more and more cautious when dealing with Tsang, who asked their hearts to tremble at the thought of the Divine Master's estate. At this moment, their sympathy for Wu Xiao was like a torrential river, endless. After a long time. After Tsang was full, he spread out his limbs and laid on the table. The few people present saw that it was so casual, and the corners of their mouths couldn't help but twitch. Then, they heard Tsang start to burp, and their foreheads were full of black lines. Uncle Long, just what is this little thing's background? The master of the Ning family couldn't help but ask Uncle Long secretly. How should I say this? He's very powerful and can't be provoked. Uncle Long thought for a moment and replied. Ah. Hearing Uncle Long's answer, the master of the Ning family was depressed. What was the difference between Uncle Long's answer and not saying anything? In fact, he wanted to know the identity of this Totoro more. Unfortunately, Uncle Dragon gave him such an ambiguous answer. Wasn't he deliberately trying to make him anxious? At that moment, he felt as if there was a kitten scratching at his heart, making him itch unbearably, but he was helpless. This fact made him very conflicted. However, he didn't struggle for long before the second elder of the Ning family sent him some news. After hearing it, he immediately widened his eyes and stared at the Totoro, who was sleeping soundly on the table. The second elder had told him that a Totoro had destroyed the Divine Lord's estate. The one in front of him was exactly the same as the Totoro that the second elder had described to him. Therefore, he had no doubt that this Totoro was the one that had destroyed the God Lord's estate. However, was this possible? Wait a minute. This Totoro was with Shuai. If it was really the Totoro that had destroyed the Divine Master's estate, didn't that mean that Shuai and the others had also gone to the Divine Master's estate? Instantly, this thought made the master of the Ning family pale with fright. The more he didn't want this to come true, the more he felt that the possibility of this situation was very high. Shuai and the others said they were going to find the antidote, but they didn't tell him where they were going. Did they really go to U City? The seed of doubt was planted in the heart of the Ning family master. But when he thought of this possibility, the anger in Master Ning's heart began to rise. Damn it! If they really went to U City and kept it a secret from her, then she would definitely not forgive that stupid girl who didn't know her place. The Defense City was the Divine Master's territory. Was it that easy to go there? Especially when he thought of the possibility that Len Ruoxue and the rest had gone to the Divine Master's residence, his heart was filled with anxiety. He knew very well that if Shuai and the others went to the Divine Master's estate, they would definitely not go through the proper procedures to get the antidote. After all, it was not easy to meet the Divine Master. There was only one possibility, and that was to steal it. To steal from the Divine Master's residence. This thought made the master of the Ning family feel very crazy. However, a voice in his heart was telling him that these people would do such a thing. The master of the Ning family, who was in a dilemma, sent a message to Uncle Long again. Uncle Long, you guys went to Imperial City. He went to the Divine Lord's estate. Yes. Uncle Long nodded slightly. Now that they were back, there was no need to hide this matter from others. Hearing this, the master of the Ning family stood up from his seat with a whoosh. After confirming it, his face was red with anger and he couldn't help but roar, "Why didn't you tell me about such a big thing earlier?" The great elder saw that the old man of the Ning family was suddenly furious and was still a little confused, so he asked dumbly, "Old man Ning, what's wrong with you? Did you take the wrong medicine?" "You're the one who's taken the wrong medicine. You can ask them where they went and you'll know why I'm angry." The master of the Ning family rolled his eyes at the first elder, who looked a little dazed. He pointed at Uncle Long and Ao Jia and said angrily, "Ah! Uncle Long, what's going on?" The first elder turned to look at Uncle Long and Ao Jia. "We went to Yu City to find an antidote for Bing Yao, and we also went to the Divine Master's residence," Uncle Long explained. However, the great elder still didn't quite understand, and his face became even more confused. Going to the Imperial City and the Divine Master's estate, this shouldn't be a big deal, right? Why was the old man of the Ning family so angry? He wasn't as well informed as the master of the Ning family, so he didn't know what had happened in the Divine Master's estate. Seeing this, the master of the Ning family had to make it more clear. They collapsed the God Lord's manor. The God Lord's estate is now in ruins. The moment he said that, First Elder and Cheng Wu were both dumbfounded and did not come back to their senses for a long time. However, the first thing the two of them said when they came back to their senses was different. "Really? You guys are really amazing." Although he had regained his senses, the great elder still felt a little uncertain. Such a mysterious thing had actually happened to someone he knew. It was simply too powerful. "My idol. How did you do it? Tell us," Cheng Wu said excitedly. It had to be said that his ability to accept things was too strong. He had not thought about the consequences of this matter at all. He only wanted to know the process of this matter. When the great elder heard Cheng Wu's words, he also looked at Uncle Long with anticipation and admiration. Do you know how dangerous this is and how serious the consequences are?" Seeing the great elder and Cheng Wu's excitement, the master of the Ning family growled in a low voice. "Ah! It's already ruined, so what's the point of telling me?" The first elder shrunk his neck and mumbled softly. "Yup. What's done is done, there's nothing wrong with us listening, right?" Cheng Wu said. However, his choice of words seemed a little inappropriate, because the master of the Ning family was even angrier after hearing what he said. He glared at them for a long time with fire in his eyes, and the two of them didn't dare to make a sound. Then, Master Ning flicked his sleeves angrily and left the room. Seeing his appearance, the great elder couldn't help but swallow his saliva and said, Old man Ning is really angry, ai. If only you had brought him to Yu City back then, he wouldn't have been so jealous." "I know he's jealous." The first elder made an important conclusion to the actions of the Ning family master. Uncle Dragon and Ao Jia nodded in agreement after hearing the great elder's words. They also thought that the little guy was jealous, but it was too late to be jealous now. They had already returned. The disloyal great elder was more interested in hearing how Uncle Long and the others had destroyed the Divine Master's residence. Therefore, he didn't even think about coaxing his old friend. Instead, he kept urging Uncle Long to tell him what had happened. Uncle Long was annoyed, so he said seriously, "This matter has nothing to do with us. It was it who destroyed the Divine Master's estate." Seeing that Uncle Long was pointing at the gluttonous little Totoro, both the great elder and Cheng Wu were dumbfounded again. Was this possible? Neither of them could tell that the Totoro in front of them had such great ability to destroy the Divine Lord's manor. One should know that the houses in the Divine World were extraordinarily sturdy, especially the Divine Lord's estate. Even a supreme god might not be able to destroy it. However, this seemingly weak little thing was the main culprit that Uncle Long had mentioned. How could they believe this? Under the disbelieving gazes of the first elder and Cheng Wu, Azure opened his pitch-black and bright eyes and woke up. He glanced at the two and said coldly, "What's the big deal with destroying the God Lord's estate? That God Lord's mansion was as crunchy as a piece of tofu. I didn't even use much strength before it collapsed. No wonder I didn't feel any sense of achievement. The Divine Master's estate was tofu? Hearing these words, the Great Elder and Cheng Wu were once again in a daze. After they came back to their senses, they stared at Sung with bright eyes. So their true idol was here. Powerful. He was really too powerful. Comparing the Divine Master's estate to tofu, if the Divine Master heard this, he would be depressed to death. Following that, the two of them came in front of Tsang and said softly, "Senior, can you tell us about your great achievements? Let us be happy as well." Ha ha ha. What's wrong with that? The two's adoring gazes pleased Tsang, and his mood improved greatly. Tsang's attitude also became more amiable. Then, Tsang began to explain the entire situation to the two of them. After listening to it, the First Elder and Cheng Wu's adoration for Tsang had already reached a point of no return. These two heartless guys were extremely excited, while the master of the Ning family was so angry that he directly returned to the Ning family. However, no one immediately noticed that he had returned to the Ning family. When Len Ruoxue found out that her godfather had lost his temper because of their trip to Yu City, she did not immediately coax him back. After all, in her heart, her godfather was just in a fit of anger. He would be fine after a few days. Thus, she placed all her attention on making the antidote for her senior brother. As for the head elder and Cheng Wu, the two of them were always following behind Song. Although they didn't know Tsang's true identity, this didn't stop them from becoming his loyal followers. As for Uncle Long and Ao Jia, they would stay in the Yao family building when they were free. Of course, their main purpose was the food there because Shuer did not have time to make good food for them at the moment. Therefore, the two of them had to rely on themselves. Chapter 2061, Side Branch of the Ning Family. 1. Half a month later, Len Ruoxue, who had been making antidotes for Bing Yao, had not appeared in front of Uncle Long and Ao Jie. Seeing this, the two of them could not help but feel anxious. "I say, old whale, it's been half a month. Has that girl still not succeeded?" In the garden, Ao Jie glanced at Uncle Long and said gloomily. He thought that he would see Bing Yao alive and kicking a long time ago. Who knew that girl had been in the room for half a month without any news? "I don't think so." AI. Uncle Long was also a little worried, but he wasn't an alchemist, so he couldn't help the girl. They didn't know what the situation was, so they could only wait outside. At this moment, Tsang took small steps with two followers behind him. The two people and one beast walked into the garden slowly. After seeing Uncle Dragon and Ao Jie's bitter faces, Tsang smiled and said, "You two little fellows, what are you so worried about?" Hearing the word little fellow, Uncle Dragon and Ao Jie were depressed. They had always used the word little fellow on others. But now, with Tsang, the old man who had lived longer, the two of them had to stand aside and become little fellows. Wu, what the hell was this? First Elder and Cheng Wu, who were following behind Song, twitched their lips when they heard little fellow. It was not the first time they heard Song call Uncle Long and Ao Jia that, but every time they heard it, they felt as if crows were flying over their heads. They knew that Uncle Long and Ao Jia were so depressed that they were about to vomit blood, but they were also depressed. Uncle Dragon and Ao Jia had become little guys, so they naturally became the little guys that Song mentioned. At the thought of this, the First Elder and Cheng Wu could not help but look at each other. They thought to themselves, "I wonder how high the seniority of this Totoro is." Uncle Long and Ao Jia did not have any doubts about the name Little Fellow. "I really want to know its origin." Unfortunately, they didn't tell anyone. Their curiosity was like a cat scratching at them. However, when they thought about how Uncle Long and Ao Jia kept their mouths shut about Tsang's identity and how powerful Tsang was, the First Elder and Cheng Wu held back. When they saw Tsang jump onto the stone table, the two of them immediately took out a warm and thick cushion and laid it on the table. When Tsang saw it, he nodded in satisfaction and then laid on it like a lord. Uncle Long and Ao Jia looked at the First Elder and Cheng Wu's fawning behavior in disdain. Why didn't they realize that these two were so good at sucking up? Now, he had finally experienced it. Little guys, do you have something on your mind? Seeing that no one was paying attention to him, Azure could only ask again. However, his fiery eyes were red as he said, "Don't make me repeat myself." Uncle Dragon and Ao Jia could not help but shiver. Then, they said at the same time, "We're worried about Bingyao. I wonder how Shuai's antidote is going." "What's there to worry about? You should have more confidence in the girl." First Elder calmly interjected, then his hand gently stroked Sang's body, stroking its fur. Azure snorted comfortably and nodded in agreement. "Yes, you should have more confidence in that little girl. She will succeed." In reality, no one knew better than it about its future master's condition. In reality, Leng Ruoxue had refined countless antidotes in the past half a month, but it was a pity that they all ended in failure. Of course, it wasn't appropriate to tell others about this. Otherwise, it would only bring endless pressure to these people. Hence, Azure could only pretend to be deaf and not report the good news. "I know. I'm actually very confident in that girl." Uncle Long nodded. However, as soon as he said that, he received a disdainful look from Ao Jia. Ao Jia then added, "I also believe that." The two of them looked at each other in disdain, then turned their heads away at the same time, ignoring each other. At this moment, Leng Ruoxue, who was working hard to refine an antidote for her senior brother, was starting to feel frustrated. She had refined it countless times, but not once had she succeeded. This was all because the blood cherry blossom petals were too overbearing, and the supplementary medicinal ingredients were unable to fuse with it. This fact gave her a great headache. As they watched Leng Ruoxue walk around the alchemy room in the purple bamboo house, green vessel, and the demon felt helpless. However, they were more worried about Leng Ruoxue's condition. If she could not refine the antidote successfully, it would become an inner demon and it would be detrimental to Leng Ruoxue's future cultivation. At the thought of this, the two of them looked at each other. Then, the demon pulled Leng Ruoxue and said, "Shuai, take a rest. Let's go out for a walk." He was really worried that something would happen to Shuai if she continued to be in this state. Leng Ruoxue looked at the demon's worried face and nodded. Then, with a change of mind, she brought the demon out of the bracelet and into the garden. When they saw Leng Ruoxue an evildoer, Uncle Long and Ao Jia quickly came to her side and asked with concern, "Shuai." Just as they said these two words, they realized that Leng Ruoxue's spirit was a little dispirited and listless. At that moment, the two of them swallowed their questions. "This is Shuai." Hearing the conversation between Uncle Dragon and Ao Jia, the Great Elder asked in disbelief. How did Shuai become a man? He clearly remembered that Shuai was still a woman when she came back, but now, the man in front of him was a complete stranger. In reality, Leng Ruoxue was originally a man. As the green vessel's skill had not expired, it was impossible for her to recover. However, she was afraid that her godfather and first elder would not be used to it, so she had deliberately concealed it when she came back. However, when she came out of the bangle this time, she forgot to continue concealing it. This was why first elder was so surprised when he saw her. Cheng Wu's mouth was also half open as he looked at Leng Ruoxue in disbelief. He was completely dumbfounded. Of course it's Shuai. In order to hide her identity and make it easier for her to move, she temporarily changed her gender. Don't make a fuss about it. Uncle Long pretended to be angry when he saw the two of them, but he couldn't help but think to himself, from the looks of it, Shuai didn't succeed in refining the antidote. Oh. If Shuai didn't say anything, then they shouldn't ask. At the same time, Uncle Long gave Ao Jia a look, signaling him to keep his mouth shut. Ao Jia was already a little worried when he saw Leng Ruoxue's dispirited look. Now that he received Uncle Long's hint, he naturally kept his mouth shut. When the first elder and Cheng Wu heard what Uncle Long had to say, they tactfully shut their mouths and did not speak. Both of them could tell that Leng Ruoxue was not in a good mood. However, they could not suppress the curiosity in their hearts. They were really too curious. How did her gender change? Although they were curious, they had to keep their curiosity to themselves when they saw Ling Ruoxia's appearance. At this moment, both of them felt as if there were countless kittens scratching at their hearts, making them itch. Chapter 2062, Side Branch of the Ning Family, 2, Song, who was originally lying on the stone table, jumped into Ling Ruoxia's arms and let her hug him. He even found a comfortable position and ignored the cold glares that were shot at him. He half closed his eyes with a satisfied expression. Ling Ruoxia caressed Song's chubby and round little body in her arms. She then looked at the worried Uncle Long and Ao Jia, as well as First Elder and Cheng Wu, who wanted to say something but stopped. Both of them were holding back their words until their faces were red. Ling Ruoxia smiled and asked, "Where's Godfather? Are you still angry?" "It should be. I haven't seen him for half a month." First Elder quickly said. "I'll go see Godfather." Ling Ruoxia sighed helplessly. "Girl, there's no need to look. That little fellow is no longer here." Azure said. "What?" Ling Ruoxia didn't quite understand Song's words. Could it be that Godfather had already left? But why didn't anyone tell her? However, when she saw that the First Elder and the others also had question marks on their faces, she suddenly realized that they didn't know either. That little guy left. Ever since he found out about what happened in U City, he left. Song made his words even clearer. Then, he looked innocently at Ling Ruoxia and started to play with his claws. "Why didn't you tell me?" Ling Ruoxia was shocked. She didn't go and coax her godfather when he left. With his temper, wouldn't he go crazy with anger? "I saw that you were busy, so I didn't tell you. However, this was not a big deal. You don't have to worry. Maybe in a few days, that little guy will come back on his own." Azure said with a look of disapproval. "Godfather must be really angry this time. I'd better go to the Ning family's divine realm to coax Godfather." Ling Ruoxia said after some thought. It just so happened that her mood had been very irritable recently. Under such circumstances, it wasn't suitable for her to continue refining pills. Hence, she would just take it as going there to relax. "Little girl, I'll go with you," First Elder quickly said. However, he felt a little awkward when he said the word girl. It was really strange that the man in front of him was calling her girl. However, Ling Ruoxia did not know about First Elder's dilemma. Following that, she heard Cheng Wu say that he wanted to follow them, so she said, "If you leave, what will happen to the Yao clan? The Yao family building is already on the right track, so I don't need to stay there all day. Besides, isn't there Uncle Long? I believe that no one without eyes would dare to find trouble with the Yao clan." Cheng Wu said with confidence. "Yes, I'm here. Shuer, just let them go with you." After hearing what Cheng Wu said, Uncle Long glared at him before chuckling at Ling Ruoxia. He knew that it was time for Shuer to go out for a walk and change her mood. Although Cheng Wu felt a little aggrieved after receiving Uncle Long's glare, he did not dare to show it. He could only stand obediently by Ling Ruoxia's side like a little wife. Seeing this, Ling Ruoxia chuckled and said to Uncle Long, "Then I'll have to trouble Uncle Long with everything at home. What's so troublesome about our own family matters? Shuer, go and have fun. Don't be in such a hurry to come back." Uncle Long said with a smile. "Yes." Ling Ruoxia nodded. Even though Uncle Long told her not to rush back, she still planned to return immediately after coaxing her godfather. After all, she was still worried about her senior brother's injuries. Following that, Ling Ruoxia's group of 4 people and 1 beast prepared to head to the Ning family's divine realm. The Ning clan's divine territory was not too far away from the land of evil demons. If they were to fly or teleport, they would be able to reach it in half a day. However, they knew that Ling Ruoxia was not in a good mood. Hence, the 3 humans and 1 beast strongly suggested that they walk to the Ning clan's divine territory. Just like that, the 4 humans and 1 beast traveled lightly. They planned to walk and have fun all the way before they set off. After walking for close to 3 days, they passed by 2 small towns. After staying a night in each of the 2 small towns, they continued on their way. At this time, they were not far from the Ning clan's divine realm. However, there were no more small towns in front of them that they could stay in. Hence, Leng Ruoxue and the rest chose to stay out in the wild for the next few nights. However, with her and the first elder around, they naturally did not need to set up tents. Instead, they stayed in the houses that they brought along with them. On this day, Leng Ruoxue and the rest had just finished their dinner when they heard someone knocking on the door. Chen Wu went to take a look and saw 5 men and 1 woman, a total of 6 people. It looked like they were planning to stay overnight. After opening the door and confirming the purpose of their visit, he reported the situation to Leng Ruoxue and the rest. Before Leng Ruoxue could say anything, First Elder immediately said, "No. We can't just let strangers stay overnight. Tell them to find another place. They're not welcome here." The Great Elder refused firmly and decisively. He didn't want to cause trouble for them in the middle of the night. Yes. Chen Wu nodded. He did not like strangers either. Immediately after, Chen Wu turned around to inform the others that they had refused to let them stay the night. After Chen Wu left, Azure smiled and said, "I'm afraid that those people won't be easy to send away." Although it was in someone else's divine artifact, as long as it wanted to know the situation of the divine realm, it absolutely could not be hidden from it. And with a slight sweep of its divine sense, it knew that those few people were very troublesome. Therefore, towards the Great Elder's refusal, it was very supportive. After all, in this wilderness, if one's heart was too good, it was very easy for things to go wrong. "This is our territory. What are they trying to do?" the Great Elder said with a face full of disdain. Although his strength was not considered high in the divine world, he believed that no one would dare to act rashly in front of him given his status. Moreover, these few people in front of him were not to be trifled with. As soon as the Great Elder finished speaking, they heard the sound of disputes. Filled with boredom and curiosity, Leng Ruoxue and the others arrived at the main entrance. They saw Chen Wu quarreling with the 5 men and 1 woman until their faces and ears were red. Moreover, from Chen Wu's angry appearance, it was obvious that he was quite angry. As for the 5 men and 1 woman, they were all very beautiful. However, the strongest among the 5 was only a god king, while the woman was a god-tier master. "Chen Gu, what happened?" Leng Ruoxue frowned slightly and asked indifferently. "Young master, these people want to stay the night and even want to force their way in." Chen Wu turned his head and complained. Along the way, he had already changed his way of addressing Leng Ruoxue as young master for convenience's sake. Although he was not used to it, he still put on a good front in front of outsiders. "There's such a thing. Where did these little guys come from? You don't understand the rules." Hearing this, the First Elder was enraged. Seeing that the Great Elder seemed to be able to make a decision and his strength was unfathomable, one of the men among the 5 men and 1 woman bowed slightly and said with a smile, "Senior, this is the outskirts, it's very inconvenient to sleep outside, and we have girls here, so we hope that Senior can make it convenient for us to stay for a night, we will be very grateful." The man's words were unusually polite, but the First Elder's brows were tightly furrowed. Clearly, he was not interested in these words. Then, he heard the First Elder huffing angrily, "What's wrong with a girl? Just because there's a girl, you guys can force your way in?" Chapter 2063, Side Branch of the Ning Family, 3, Senior, this is definitely a misunderstanding. We just want to find someone who can make the decision, and we don't mean to force our way in. Moreover, we just want to stay for a night. We are not bad people, we are all people of the Ning family, so please rest assured. The man continued. The smile on his face was very gentle, and he definitely looked like a gentle and refined person. When the Great Elder heard the man's words, he pondered for a moment and asked, "You're from the Ning family? What's your name?" There were many people in the Ning family, but since they were from the Ning family, for the sake of Old Man Ning, they really couldn't just keep them outside the door like before. "I'm Ning Xiao, and these are my clan brothers and sisters." Ning Xiao introduced. After he finished speaking, he took out a token that represented the Ning family's identity. In fact, they were only from the Ning family's side branches. However, the token of the Ning family's direct branch and the side branch only had a slight difference. Unless it was someone who was particularly familiar with the Ning family, it would be very difficult to distinguish them. Thus, the Ning family's identity token had always been useful in the divine realm, and it was also a symbol of their identity. Oh! Glancing at the token Ning Xiao took out, and then at the other four, the great elder said, "Since you're the Ning family's little guys, I'll let you stay for one night." As soon as the great elder's words came out, Ning Xiao and the others immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Then, Ning Xiao gave the other four a look, and the five of them said gratefully, "Many thanks, senior." Following that, Leng Ruoxue instructed Cheng Wu to prepare guest rooms for the 5 members of the Ning family. After that, the 4 of them and the beast went to the living room to continue their conversation. Sitting in the living room, Leng Ruoxue looked at First Elder with a faint smile and teased, "I thought the Great Elder would fight with the 5 of them. I didn't expect you to change your mind. Hee hee. If they weren't people of the Ning family, I would have really beaten them out. But since they're people of the Ning family, I still have to give old man Ning some face, even though these little guys are just side branches of the Ning family." The Great Elder said matter-of-factly. Old man Ning had left in a fit of anger, so he must be angry with him. Therefore, he had to find a way to appease him. Otherwise, when the old man got angry, the consequences would be very serious. He just didn't know who would be the unlucky one. "I don't like them." At this moment, Song, who was lying comfortably in Leng Ruoxue's arms, spoke indifferently. It especially hated that woman's gaze because that woman treated it as a pet. This was preposterous. Not to mention that it was not a pet, even if it was a pet, it was not something that anyone could dream of. "Don't worry, Senior Song, they're only staying for one night, so they won't be of any trouble to you," the First Elder said with a fawning expression. "I hope so," Song said indifferently, but from its voice, it seemed to be very important. In fact, Song was very clear that apart from the one called Ning Xiao, who seemed to be quite well behaved, the other 4 were not easy to deal with, especially the woman. Her strength was not high, but her ability to cause trouble was unparalleled. Otherwise, why would they insist on staying? However, it didn't intend to say these words out loud. In its heart, as long as those people didn't provoke it, it would be fine. Once they dared to provoke it, then they couldn't blame it for being ruthless. It didn't even give face to the Divine Master, so what could the little guys of the Ning family do? While Leng Ruoxue and the rest were discussing the 6 people, the 5 men and 1 woman were also chatting in the room. The 6 of them were currently gathered in the same room. The 5 men were all sitting on the chairs, drinking hot tea, while the only woman was constantly touching the room. "Ning Xiao Gij. This house is so beautiful. These decorations don't look cheap." At this time, the woman's hand was touching a crystal-clear vase that looked like crystal. In her joy, she couldn't help but play with the vase in her hand. The more she looked at it, the more she liked it. "Ning Huan, put down the vase in your hand and don't touch the things here. If Master finds out, he'll kick us out." Ning Xiao saw Ning Huan's eyes light up when she saw the vase, and she suddenly felt a headache. This damned Ning Huan, why couldn't she change this bad habit no matter where she went? She wanted everything she saw and had caused them a lot of trouble along the way. However, the other 4 people still thought that she was in high demand and pampered her without any principles, spoiling her to the point where she was lawless. Sure enough, after hearing Ning Xiao's words, a man with a face full of displeasure said, "She's just a vase. If Huan Huan likes it, we can just buy it, what's the big deal?" "That's right, we're from the Ning family. After that old man found out, he still obediently let us stay for the night, They said they wouldn't agree no matter what, but they immediately agreed when they heard our identity. So, with our identity, let alone buying it from them, even if we want a vase, what can we do?" Someone immediately chimed in, his face still full of disapproval. You Ning Xiao was so angry that he felt depressed, but he was too lazy to argue with them. He just sneered in his heart. A group of blind fools, do you think the owner of this house is easy to mess with? Why didn't he think about how a house would appear in the wilderness? If he didn't guess wrong, this house should be the legendary spatial divine artifact that could allow people to live in. And the owner of such a divine artifact, would he be easy to get along with? He even guessed that the owner of this house was not inferior to the Ning family's ancestor in terms of status. With this thought, he was even more certain in his heart and made up his mind that no matter what the other 5 people wanted to do, he would never get involved with them. And in the end, the facts proved that his choice was wise. Then, Ning Xiao stood up and warned the other 5, I advise you all to be more honest. We're about to reach the Ning family's divine realm, don't cause any more trouble. Otherwise, don't blame me for not doing anything. With that, Ning Xiao turned and left. Looking at his back view, Ning Huan pouted her pink lips in grievance and said with tears in her beautiful eyes, Brother Ning Xiao, are you angry with me? I didn't mean to cause trouble. That's right, the main reason she caused trouble was because she liked something too much. As she thought about this, the expression on her face became more and more dazzling. Her pitiful look made the other 4 people feel tender and protective towards her. All of them felt sorry for her and started to coax Ning Huan. Huan. Why should you care about that hypocrite's words? With us here, you can naturally do whatever you want. I'm sure that no one would dare to cause trouble for our Ning family. A certain man patted his chest and promised. His eyes were lecherously peeking at Ning Huan's perky chest. He couldn't help but swallow his saliva, as if a fire was burning in his heart. When the other 3 saw this, they naturally did not want to be outdone and coaxed, that's right. Huan, you're the daughter of the Ning family. As long as you like something, people should take the initiative to give it to you, so you don't have to feel any pressure. Just tell us what you like and we'll get it for you. Really? Ning Huan was secretly happy, but the expression on her face was still uncertain. She had a weak and fragile appearance, and with the deliberate act of pity, it was naturally easier for some men who were lustful to take pity on her. Of course. The 4 of them nodded at the same time. After they finished speaking, they stared at each other silently. After all, the 4 of them were love rivals. Even if they could get along peacefully on the surface, they were secretly scheming against each other. However, Ning Huan didn't care about the undercurrent between them. To her, the most important thing was to get her answer right. Then, her cheeks flushed red, and she lowered her head shyly. I really like everything here, and that Snow White Totoro. If any of you can get me all of this, I can consider. Although she had only said half of her sentence, her meaning was clear. The 4 people understood what she meant. Immediately, the 4 of them promised in unison, Huan, don't worry. It'll definitely make your wish come true. After that, the 4 of them left together. Once they left, Ning Huan's beautiful face immediately revealed a mocking smile. She was even more lamenting in her heart. A bunch of idiots, how could she possibly take a fancy to them? In fact, she had a crush on someone for a long time, but she had never had the chance to get close to him. This time, she came to the Ning family's divine territory, and her chance might come. Therefore, she spared no effort to arrange tasks for those 4 people. The main purpose was to send them away or cause them some trouble so that they couldn't continue to follow her. After all, they were about to reach the Ning family's divine territory. She didn't want these 4 people to still surround her. That was why she showed her desire for everything here, because she could also see that the people here were not to be trifled with. Moreover, she really liked this place and that cute Totoro. It would be good if those 4 people could really get all of this for her. If they couldn't, then they could only blame their bad luck. In short, no matter what the result was, she wouldn't suffer a loss. As she thought of this, the smile on her face became brighter and brighter. After the 4 of them left the room, they went to find Cheng Wu. When they saw Cheng Wu, the 4 of them went straight to the point and said their thoughts, we want to buy this house and that Totoro. Name a price. Chapter 2064, Can you give it to me? 1. The four of them spoke with such confidence that it was only natural. Cheng Wu was stunned when he heard that. He asked with his mouth half open, "What are you guys talking about?" That. He didn't hear wrong, right? We said, we want to buy this house and that Totoro. Name your price. One of them repeated. After he finished speaking, he even glanced at Cheng Wu with a disdainful look and secretly sighed in his heart. What a pity. This person was so tall and strong, but he was actually a fool. Only after the man finished speaking did Cheng Wu confirm that he had not misheard. However, after confirming, his mouth opened even wider and he was unable to say anything for a long time. This further confirmed the fact that he was a little silly in the eyes of those people. Of course, Cheng Wu did not know what those four people were thinking. Otherwise, he would have kicked them out of the house. Seeing that Cheng Wu did not respond for a long time, the four of them grew impatient and continued to ask, "We are asking you a question. Are you going to sell this house and that Totoro or not? Give me a reaction." I'm just a follower, I can't make the decision on this matter. Cheng Wu finally came back to his senses. He wiped the cold sweat off his forehead without a change in expression. His little heart trembled as he thought to himself, are these people really from the Ning family? He really wondered how the Ning family could be so stupid. Even if they had not seen much of the world and did not know the value of this house, they should not be so confident, right? Did they really think that the Ning family was omnipotent in the divine realm? The more Cheng Wu thought about it, the more he felt contempt. This was the tragedy of a big family. Their descendants were mixed with good and bad people. Therefore, at this moment, he really felt that it was not good to have too many children in the family. As the number of children increased, they would definitely neglect to educate some of the children with lower IQs. That was why they had raised such a group of idiots. He sighed to himself, but when the four people heard his words, they immediately said in dissatisfaction, "Why didn't you say so earlier? Can you afford to waste our time?" With that, the four of them flicked their sleeves and left to look for the person who had the final say. Cheng Wu stared at the back of the four of them, dumbfounded, and remained silent for a long time. And this was his fault. Did you? What kind of people were these? Cheng Wu was so angry that his heart was trembling, and he made up his mind to have a good talk with his young miss about this matter. These idiots were really too infuriating. Terrible. He suddenly thought that these morons might have gone to look for his miss. After he came back to his senses, he quickly went to look for Leng Ruoxue and watched the show while he was at it. At this moment, Leng Ruoxue, the demon, and Sung were still in the living room. Only the first elder was not present. When Cheng Wu entered and saw the two of them and the beast, he went straight to the point and asked angrily, "Miss, have those idiots arrived yet?" "What idiot?" When Leng Ruoxue heard this, she raised her head in shock and turned her beautiful eyes towards Cheng Wudao. "It's those idiots from the Ning family." When Cheng Wu saw this, he suddenly realized that he had come too quickly. After all, this was not the Ning family. How could it be so easy for those people to find the young lady and the others? However, Cheng Wu didn't care if they had been here or not. He directly told Leng Ruoxue what the four of them had told him. When Leng Ruoxue heard this, she exchanged glances with the demon and raised her brows. She said indifferently, "Oh. I didn't expect them to have such thoughts. However, they never came to me." "Miss, if they come to find you, what are you going to do?" Cheng Wu asked expectantly. A glint flashed across his eyes, and he was obviously gloating. "What can I do? This house isn't mine, and as for Tsang, it hasn't acknowledged me as its owner yet, so I don't have the right to make the decision. I can't make the decision as a bystander." Leng Ruoxue laughed evilly. As she spoke, she stroked Tsang's soft and smooth fur in her arms. She laughed in her heart. Those Ning clansmen were really blind. They actually dared to have designs on this house and Tsang. However, the house they were currently living in was the Great Elder's. Therefore, she was really not sure how the great elder would handle this matter. As for Tsang, after hearing Chingwa's words, he did not even have any expression on his face. Leng Ruoxu's stroking made him so comfortable that he closed his eyes and snorted. However, not long after Leng Ruoxu's words left her mouth, they could clearly hear First Elder's furious roar, "Fuck! You guys don't understand human language, do you? I said I'm not selling it, so I'm not selling it." Hearing the First Elder's vulgarities, Leng Ruoxue and the others exchanged glances and walked out of the door together. In the courtyard, there were 4 people surrounding the Great Elder, taking turns to bombard him with words. "I say, Senior, don't be so heartless. It's just a house, we're willing to pay a high price for it. Just sell it to us." The words of the person who spoke were quite pleasant to the ears. Those who were not pleasant to the ears and had bad tempers said directly, "Old man, it's your honor that our Ning family has taken a fancy to your house. Don't be ungrateful. There's no benefit to you in offending our Ning family. Do you all still want to continue living in the divine realm? Quickly sell us the house." "That's right. Old Senior. You don't look young, and the location of this house is not good. The money we gave you is enough for you to buy a house in the city. Why are you so stubborn?" someone else said. The last person also said anxiously, I say, why are you guys talking so much nonsense with him? We're interested in his house, so he has to sell it no matter what. Is this really up to him?" "Yes, this matter is not up to him. If he doesn't sell the house to us, then don't blame us for being impolite. Even if we have to rob him, we have to get this house." The man with the bad temper continued to interject. Listening to the 4 people's coaxing and carrot and stick words, the Great Elder found that he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Fuck! What the hell is this? How did the brains of the Ning family's side branches grow? They actually wanted to use their power to pressure him and force him to sell his house. After his repeated rejections, these people completely revealed their ugly faces and even started singing the good and bad cop songs. Did she think that he would compromise? He had been worried that he had no reason to fight the angry old man Ning to a draw. With these people here and the things they've done, old man Ning probably won't have the face to continue being angry at them, hee. The Great Elder's mood instantly brightened as he thought of this. For a moment, the way he looked at the 4 people in front of him was somewhat different. It was full of warmth and his attitude was also very kind. Unfortunately, he still said the same thing, "I'm not selling the house." Seeing the Great Elder being so stubborn, the 4 of them were all a little angry. They had said all the good things and used both soft and hard tactics for a long time. They had even brought up the Ning family, but they still couldn't force this old man to agree to sell the house. This fact made them feel unusually defeated. He didn't expect this old man to be such a tough bone to chew. Chapter 2065, Can you give it to me? 2. It should be known that they had done this kind of thing many times in the past, but those people were much easier to deceive than this half-grown old man in front of them. As long as the Ning family was mentioned, almost everyone would choose to give up their own objects to avoid angering the Ning family, but this old man in front of them was obviously not afraid of this at all. For a moment, the 4 of them were extremely conflicted. However, they didn't know that the First Elder really hoped that they would make a big deal out of this. Otherwise, they would only be more depressed. In fact, although the 4 of them always used the Ning family's banner to intimidate others, they were just paper tigers who were bluffing. In the past, it was their opponents who were afraid of the Ning family's power, and they would retreat after being intimidated by them. Therefore, they, who had always been successful, now really did not know how to deal with the dilemma in front of them, as well as this difficult old man. But if they were asked to give up, they would feel embarrassed. After all, the 4 of them had boasted in front of Huan Huan. Breaking a woman's promise, was that still something a man should do? At the thought of this, the 4 of them looked at each other unwillingly. Then, one of them said fiercely, "Old man, you can't afford to offend our Ning family. You'd better not refuse a toast and drink a forfeit. Just obediently give up this house. It's not like we're not giving you money. With the money we've given you, your family can find a place to settle down in the city. Why do you have to live in the wilderness? So, while we still have some patience, quickly transfer this house to us, don't make us rob you. That would be meaningless. His words were a little soft and hard. After all, they didn't want to fall out with this old man until the last moment. After hearing his words, the first elder couldn't help but think to himself, how could it be boring? If you have the ability, then snatch it. He couldn't wait for them to do something like robbing. That way, he would be able to show off in front of old man Ning. Hee hee. With this intention in mind, first elder remained unmoved in front of the four of them. Leng Ruoxue, the three humans, and the beast eavesdropped for a while in the dark before they walked over. What's wrong? What happened? Leng Ruoxue played dumb. Her beautiful eyes swept across the four people of the Ning family, but her words were directed at the great elder. They want to buy our house and your Totoro pet. The great elder's mouth twitched slightly. They had taken a fancy to his house and were rude to him. He could forgive them for old man Ning's sake, but they had provoked Song, the Totoro who refused to admit that he was a Totoro. These guys' good days were probably over. However, looking at Song's calm appearance, could it be that this was the calm before the storm? Although he hadn't been with Song for a long time, he had never thought that Song had a good temper. However, he couldn't understand Song's thoughts. He didn't know what terrifying things this calm fellow would do. They even dared to level the Divine Master's estate. So what couldn't the Ning family do? Ugh! God bless, I hope that old man Ning can protect the Ning family's main residence. He secretly prayed for the master of the Ning family in his heart, and then looked at the four people with some sympathy. He could already foresee their miserable future. At this moment, Leng Ruoxue, who had pretended to have just heard the news, only replied with a soft, "Oh," and did not continue the conversation. Instantly, someone exploded in anger. Fuck! Wasn't this pretty boy looking down on the Ning family? What was the meaning of a simple "oh"? The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. He simply shouted, "You guys, listen up. We want this house. We also want this Totoro. You'll have to sell it even if you don't want to. That's right. If you don't want to sell it, we'll just have to rob you." Immediately, someone chimed in. Hearing this, Leng Ruoxue's face was filled with black lines as she rolled her eyes. Who the hell are these people? Originally, on the account of her godfather, she had wanted to let them live. Who knew that these people would actually be so reckless? If that's the case, then don't blame her for being impolite. However, before Leng Ruoxue could react, Sung said with an unhappy expression, "You guys stole my lines." Yes, this was what it always said, and no one dared to say it in front of it. Therefore, everything they were experiencing at this moment made it quite surprised. At the same time, it could not understand how that little guy of the Ning family could have such a superb descendant. Fortunately, these people were only from the side. If they were from the main family, it would definitely exterminate them. So as not to embarrass himself in the immortal realm. After hearing Tsang's words, the four people of the Ning family couldn't help but laugh. Ha ha ha. Is this your line? You're just a Totoro who doesn't even have the strength to truss a chicken, and you actually dare to say such big words. Aren't you afraid that the wind will cut your tongue? The four of them treated Tsang's words as a joke. However, Tsang wasn't angry and continued to say calmly, "You'll know if I'm boasting or not after you try. However, I'm too lazy to deal with you right now, so you'll be able to escape for the time being." Azure was very calm, but his words made the four people laugh even more wildly. She glanced at the four of them and smiled at Leng Ruoxue, "Girl, I'm sleepy. Take me to sleep." After saying that, Cold completely ignored the four people who were laughing wildly and only looked at Evildoer provocatively. As expected, Evildoer was angered to death by Cold's words. He kept cursing in his heart. What did that guy say? Let Shuer bring it to sleep. He was simply dreaming. How could he allow such a thing to happen? As he thought of this, the evildoer rudely grabbed Tsang from Len Ruoxiu's arms and threw him to the Great Elder. Then, he teleported and disappeared from his original spot. Seeing this, Tsang smiled nonchalantly and looked up at the Great Elder. "Little fellow, bring me back to my room to sleep." It was afraid that if it stayed here any longer, it would not be able to resist tearing these 4 ants in front of it into pieces. "All right." Tsang's words caused a few drops of cold sweat to fall from the Great Elder's forehead. One had to know that he never thought that Tsang needed to sleep. However, since Tsang said so, he naturally had to cooperate. So, without thinking, he left the 4 people of the Ning family and directly disappeared with Tsang. Ugh! Seeing that he was the only one left, Chen Wu was stunned for a moment before he left as well. Of course, the 4 people from the Ning family were ignored. He was completely ignored. This fact immediately made the 4 people extremely angry. Damn it! These things that didn't know what was good for them were really too infuriating. You're actually leaving us behind. Some people cursed at the injustice. The anger in their hearts was rising. More importantly, they couldn't understand how things had developed to this point. They wanted to buy a house, but the other party was not willing to sell it. Shouldn't they be in a deadlock and not give in? However, how did the Totoro make everyone disappear when it said it wanted to sleep? Chapter 2066, Can you give it to me? 3. This unreasonable fact made them extremely confused. Moreover, no matter how they threatened, bribed, and used both soft and hard tactics, not only did the other party not buy it, but he also had an indifferent look. This made them deeply feel as if they had punched cotton. This kind of feeling could really drive people crazy. And now, the 4 of them were so mad that they wanted to scratch the wall. If they were to just run around aimlessly without an audience or any reaction, what would they feel? It was really desolate no matter how he thought about it. The 4 of them were so angry that they stomped their feet, but they had no way to vent their anger. They could only roar at the sky a few times to vent their anger, then went back to their own rooms listlessly. This army is at a disadvantage. Did you? They were originally full of enthusiasm, but now they suffered a blow and had a sleepless night. After the Grand Elder carried Tsang back to his room, he immediately asked with a fawning smile, "Senior Tsang, I wonder how you plan to deal with those 4. He was simply too curious, and his heart felt like it was being scratched by a cat. "They're just 4 little ants, I don't intend to teach them a lesson. If you have any ideas, go ahead, don't mind me. However, you have to bring out my share." Tsang Qing glanced at the Great Elder and said. Its meaning was also very obvious. It wanted the Great Elder to remember to count in his share when he dealt with those 4 people. When the Great Elder heard this, he immediately beamed with joy and explained, "Senior Tsang, don't worry. I will definitely not let them off. However, I still want to keep those people for the time being. They still have other uses. Do as you see fit. Don't make me do it, or no one will be able to bear the consequences." Azure said with a faint smile. The corner of the first elder's mouth involuntarily twitched when he heard this. These words were not false. Not many people could bear the consequences of Tsang's actions. Just think about how miserable the God Lord's manor had ended up. The next day, Ning Huan couldn't wait to find the 4 of them early in the morning to ask about the results. When she saw the 4 of them looking depressed and hesitating to say something, she knew that she had not succeeded. She was instantly enraged. How can you be so useless? You can't even handle such a small matter. Ning Huan looked at the 4 of them in disdain. We've talked to them, but they didn't agree to sell us the house and the Totoro. The 4 of them explained gloomily. Not selling? Then can't you think of a way? It's not like we've never done this before, why can't we do it this time? Ning Huan roared in anger. After staying here for a night, she had changed her mind. She had not been too keen on owning this house. She had to get this house. And that cute Totoro, she was also determined to get it. Who asked her to completely fall in love with this place in just one night? Moreover, through the skylight of the house, she could clearly see the beauty of the starry sky at night. In short, she loved everything here so much that she could not let go. After staying here for a night, the desire to own this place had taken root in her heart and sprouted. It had grown into a towering tree overnight. Once such thoughts were formed, they could not be erased no matter what. Therefore, she had already secretly vowed in her heart that she would definitely have everything here. She had come to the 4 people excitedly to ask for the results, only to hear them tell her that they were not willing to sell. This news made her unable to conceal the anger in her heart. After venting all her anger on the 4 people in front of her, she still felt that it was not enough. After scolding the 4 people again, she turned around and left in anger. As they watched Ning Huan leave, the 4 of them became even more dispirited. "Are we really that useless?" someone said. "It should be. AI. We can't even fulfill Wan Huan's simple request. We're really disappointing." Some people blamed themselves. At this time, the other 2 people stood up from their seats and walked out of the room without saying a word. The other 2 saw this and quickly followed. At the same time, Ning Huan, who had rushed out of the room in anger, went directly to Ning Xiao, asking him to help her get the house. However, after Ning Xiao heard Ning Huan's plan, he refused without thinking, causing Ning Huan to leave in a huff. After Ning Huan left, Ning Xiao couldn't help but sneer. She really didn't know what was good for her. How dare she try to get this house? He really didn't know if they were really stupid or just pretending to be stupid. Couldn't he tell that the identities of the people here were mysterious and that their strength wasn't low? In their territory, would they care about the threat of the Ning family? Suddenly, he came to a sudden realization. If Ning Huan had offended the other party and the other party killed her in a fit of anger, wouldn't they become fish on the other party's knife without the slightest ability to fight back? No. As soon as this thought appeared, Ning Xiao's heart trembled with fear, and then he chased after her. Ning Huan, who had left Ning Xiao's place, saw that Ning Xiao was not willing to help. After cursing Ning Xiao in her heart, she decided to go and find the other party herself. She did not believe that the other party would not give face to a beauty like her. After learning from the 4 of them that the half-grown old man was the owner of the house, she decided to meet the old man. It didn't take much effort for her to see the great elder and the white Totoro in the garden. At this moment, Song was bored and lazily lying on the stone table. The first elder in front of him sat on the stone chair and looked at him with a smile. Ning Huan's eyes immediately lit up when she saw this. That's great. He didn't expect to find 2 of them at once. Moreover, the Totoro's current lazy appearance was really too cute. Ning Huan's eyes were brimming with pink bubbles. It was usually difficult for women to reject such a cute little animal, and Ning Huan was no exception. Her desire to get Sung also became stronger. She had decided. After she got this house, she would definitely make the other party give her this Totoro as a bonus. Let's do it this way. After making up her mind, she walked forward. Are you the owner of this house? Ning Huan's voice was gentle and she asked very politely. Yes, I am. What business does young lady have? The great elder's eyelids didn't even close as he indifferently asked. In fact, he and Song had long noticed that someone was approaching, but they didn't take it seriously. I like this house very much, and I want to buy it. Ning Huan pretended to be shy and said softly. Her beautiful eyes were full of tears and gentleness as she floated towards the first elder. She was flirting with him. However, the great elder, who had his head lowered, did not notice this at all. He only replied indifferently, I'm not selling. Sung, who was still lying on the stone table, couldn't help but laugh in his heart. The beauty trap was here. AI. It seemed that it had lived for too long and was too bored. It was actually in the mood to watch a good show. Otherwise, it would not have let go of these eyesores. If it was in the past, it would have exterminated them long ago. Even their families would not be spared, but now. They were in the mood to watch a good show. Therefore, it simply closed its eyes and pretended to sleep. Ning Huan's anger rose again when she heard that she wasn't going to sell it. However, for the sake of the house and the adorable Totoro, she had to bear with it. After taking a deep breath, Ning Huan spoke again, "If you don't want to sell it, I won't force you. Then, can you give it to me?" Upon hearing this, the great elder raised his head in disbelief. His bright eyes stared at Ning Huan and sized her up. He couldn't help but think to himself, is there something wrong with this little girl from the Ning family? How could he be so narcissistic? Seeing that he wasn't willing to sell it, he actually asked him to give it away. What kind of logic was this? He immediately came to an important conclusion for Ning Huan. This woman was seriously ill. Ning Huan didn't know that the first elder thought she was sick, but when she saw the first elder staring at her, she thought that he had a good impression of her. She gathered her courage and said, "As long as you're willing to give me the house, I'll definitely repay you." How do you plan to repay me? The first elder's curiosity was piqued when he heard Ning Huan's words. He had lived for so long and met many people and things, but this was the first time he had met a woman who said that she would repay him. This was too horrifying. He was a little frightened. As for Ning Huan, who was not aware of it, she lowered her head even more. From the corner of her eyes, she would steal glances at the first elder from time to time. Her eyes were covered by her long eyelashes, and her eyes kept rolling around. Her heart was full of schemes. Although the man in front of her looked a little old, he was not bad looking. So, Ning Huan felt that if she seduced him once, it wouldn't be too much of an injustice. She kept telling herself in her heart that everything was for the house and the Totoro that was an addition to the house. Moreover, she felt that this wasn't really seducing him, but just using his beauty to put on an act. With that thought in mind, Ning Huan put on an expression of going all out. Then, she lowered her head even more and said in a low voice, "If you're willing to give me this house, I'm willing to repay you with my body." Shwa shwa. The first elder had just picked up the teacup on the stone table, but after hearing these words, he was so frightened that his hand trembled, and the teacup fell to the ground, splashing tea all over. What did you just say? The great elder's expression was a little unsightly, and his little heart was beating wildly in anger. In his heart, although the woman in front of him was a little annoying, she was still old man Ning's descendant. But now, the unfilial grandson of his good friend actually wanted to seduce him for a house. This was really. He was so angry that he didn't know what to do. Chapter 2067, Another Incident. 1. The great elder was so angry that his entire body was trembling. However, in Ning Huan's eyes, this was seen as excitement. Instantly, a trace of pride flashed across Ning Huan's face. She knew that no man could reject her. Then, Ning Huan pointed at Sung and continued, "You have to give me this Totoro as an extra, how about it? You didn't lose anything, did you?" She felt that the great elder had gained a great advantage. Of course, to what extent she could devote her body to him, that would depend on whether the old man in front of her would come up with something. Extra head. Extra head. When Azure heard these two words, he was so angry that all the hairs on his body stood up. Fuck. It was the spirit of the god-protecting pagoda, the powerful Tsang, but it was just an addition to the house. This was really infuriating. Thinking of this, Tsang squinted his dark eyes that were like star diamonds and sized up Ning Huan with a faint smile. Where should I start? Azure thought to himself. The first elder, who heard Ning Huan's bold and confident words again, was also frightened. Cold sweat broke out all over his body. Oh my god. This. What was he supposed to do? Tsang Ba was probably going to get angry, right? The great elder sneaked a glance at Tsang, only to realize that Tsang was only sizing up Ning Huan. Other than that, he did not have much of a reaction. However, the more this was the case, the more worried he was. Boss, please don't blame him for this. Sob. The great elder felt that his idea was very bad. That damned Ning Huan, not only did she have to give her body to this house, she even wanted Song to be her bonus. Was she worthy? Even if you want to die, you shouldn't do this. First Elder was filled with hatred, but what he was most afraid of was that Ning Huan's words and actions would implicate him. However, the Great Elder saw that Sung had not taken any action yet, so he could only endure it. At this moment, bang! 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 After a few loud bangs, 4 balls rolled into the garden and reached the First Elder's feet. The First Elder's attention was distracted for a moment, and then he saw 4 men stand up from the ground. Motherfucker! Who kicked this young master? After one of them stood up, he immediately glared at the First Elder and roared. Then, he looked down and saw the First Elder sitting on the stone chair. He was instantly enraged and shouted, "Is this your doing, old man?" The person who spoke was furious. Fuck! This old thing dared to snatch their woman. Why didn't he look at his own status? This was preposterous. Therefore, he immediately accused First Elder. The First Elder, who originally did not want to pay attention to these people, was stunned when he heard this. Then, he said in a speechless manner, "I haven't moved since I sat here, how would I have the time to kick you? Who knows which corner you're hiding in? You can't accuse people like this." Although the Great Elder was a little angry, his tone was still calm and steady. However, in the ears of the 4 people, this calm tone was a sign of guilt and fear. "If it wasn't you, then it must have been your subordinate," another person said with certainty. "Oh, really? May I ask why they are doing this?" The Great Elder said with a smile that was not a smile. Why couldn't some people use their brains before they spoke or did things? Did he really think that he had no temper? Yes. The Great Elder's temper was usually very good. Moreover, even if he was angry, he would not show it on his face. In addition, these people were from the Ning family, so he did not want to embarrass them too much. Unfortunately, some people did not know how to appreciate it. Instead, they thought that they were afraid of them. This fact made the Great Elder laugh. "Who knows? I'll have to ask you, you old pervert." The person who spoke first said angrily. Old pervert? Was he talking about him? When did he become an old pervert? The Great Elder was very depressed. The old man from the Ning family had so many women, but no one dared to call him an old pervert. She had always been clean and honest, but now she had become an old pervert. Wasn't this bullying? Did he really look that easy to bully? The Great Elder once again began to doubt if his temper was too good. Just as he was about to show his strength to these people and let them know how powerful he was, Sang's eyes swept over him and the Great Elder suppressed his anger. Woo! Could it be that Azure still hasn't played enough? The answer was, of course, yes. Sang was extremely bored and was worried about not having any toys. In the end, these few idiots came to his door, so Tsang naturally didn't want to let them go. Moreover, Chi also wanted them to experience the feeling of falling from heaven to hell. Don't look at how aggressive they are now and how powerful they seem. In a while, I will let them know what is called extreme joy begets sorrow. With such a thought, Tsang calmly laid on the stone table, squinting his eyes from time to size up the people in front of him, but he didn't say anything. Seeing it like this, the Great Elder simply shut his mouth. These people could say whatever they wanted to say, and he pretended not to hear them. Seeing them like this, the 4 of them became even angrier. Just as they were about to start scolding, they heard Ning Huan's displeased face as she frowned and questioned, "What are you guys doing here? Leave now, I don't want to see you." Ning Huan was extremely angry. Weren't these people here to ruin things? They had been doing well and were about to succeed, but these idiots had suddenly come. Now, all her previous efforts had been in vain. When she thought of this, she gritted her teeth in hatred. However, it was a good thing that First Elder and Sung didn't know what Ning Huan was thinking. Otherwise, they would definitely ask, "Miss Ning, where did you get your confidence from? When the four of them heard Ning Huan's words, they felt extremely aggrieved and unwilling. They said in unison, "Huan Huan, we're doing this for you. This old thing doesn't look like a good person, and he's not worthy of you." Upon hearing this, Ning Huan immediately rebuked, "All of you shut up. I don't need you guys to meddle in my business." Then, she turned to the first elder and said apologetically, "I'm really sorry. They don't know how to talk, please don't bother with them." Ning Huan's lungs were about to explode from anger. She spoke apologetically to the first elder in a gentle voice, but her beautiful eyes were secretly staring at the four people who were causing trouble, her gaze containing a warning. Seeing this, the four of them were all like aggrieved little wives, not daring to say a word. Ning Huan tried her best to coax the great elder, but after a few words and a wink, she was interrupted by the great elder impatiently, "All right. You don't have to say anything. I still have the same words, I'm not selling this house." After the great elder finished speaking, he picked up Tsang and left. As she watched the first elder leave, the anger in Ning Huan's heart exploded uncontrollably. She glared at the four people who were an eyesore and scolded, "You bunch of trash, it's fine if you can't do it on your own, but you actually came to disturb my business. You guys are really..." The more Ning Huan thought about it, the angrier she became. In the end, she simply started to punch and kick the four people. However, Ning Huan's strength was low, so her fancy punches and kicks were no different from flirting in the eyes of the four people. Therefore, the four people who were hit not only were not angry, but they even put their faces in front of Ning Huan and smiled charmingly, "Huan Huan, let's fight. Rest for a while if you're tired, don't hurt your hand."